Chapter 1675. Hua. Lin Feng floated in the air and looked into the distance. It was a transparent island that resembled a pyramid. It had a total of 7 levels and was in the shape of a cone. However, each level was completely separated from each other and was only connected by a passage of light. The top of the island emitted a dazzling light, as if it was the only light in the sky. The powerful suction force was like a black hole, gathering the spiritual energy from all directions. It was the center of the entire island tower. With it, as the apex, thin rays of spiritual chi scattered down, forming transparent lines that connected the entire island tower together. In fact, it was also the center of the entire large-scale spirit gathering array. It was extremely precious. This 7-story island tower was the true forbidden area of the Demon Clan. Demon Emperor Island. I'm here again. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His current mood was different from before. At that time, to find the whereabouts of his mother, he had to avoid the pursuit of the great sage. It could be said that every step he took was dangerous. But now, he was extremely relaxed, without any burden. To him, this was just an ordinary island. Even if there were thousands of Demon Clan experts, so what? In front of him, they were like ants. However, even so, he couldn't let his guard down. After all, he did not know when and where the Devil Star would appear, nor did he know if the terrifying world-destroying Devil God in the Demon Graveyard beside the Demon Emperor Island would change. If he went one level deeper, even if the Gray Great Sage led countless Gray Demon Clan experts, he might not be able to match it. However, sometimes it was useless to think too much. What was going to happen would eventually happen. Oh, Lin Feng was slightly surprised, and his eyes couldn't help but brighten. Before entering Demon Emperor Island, he could already feel Pang Rant's aura approaching. It wasn't inferior to his own. In the entire Demon Clan, there was only one person who had such power, and that was the Gray Great Sage. Again, Lin Feng frowned slightly, but his eyes suddenly brightened. Different. It was completely different from before. Every time the Gray Great Sage appeared, he would bring a considerable number of Gray Demon Clan experts. But this time, however, the only aura that he could sense was this one and only aura. Oh, Lin Feng was quite surprised, his eyes widening. What was the demon race planning? Could it be that he would first feign weakness and use the Gray Great Sage to stall him, and then launch a killing move? Or perhaps, had he killed most of the Gray Demon experts? Various possibilities flashed through his mind, and Lin Feng quickly made a decision. He slowly retreated, and the surging power of heaven and earth spread out as he used his heart to sense everything around him. Even if the Gray Demonic Beast Race expert had restrained his aura, and the Star Source energy could not be sensed, but the world energy could be sensed completely. This was because the two of them were existences of different energies. However, no, within the range of his senses, there was nothing else other than that single gray light spot. Interesting. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up. He didn't stay where he was. Instead, he continued to retreat, but this time, his speed was much slower. Although he did not know what had happened that caused the Gray Great Sage to come alone this time, there was no doubt that it was something worth celebrating. For the past 3 months, she had been chased by him to the point of choking. Every time she saw him, she would run away like a mouse seeing a cat. Only when he was not around could she start a massacre. Now, finally, there was a chance for her to be alone. Let's end this quickly. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. There was still a trace of fear in his heart. On one hand, he was far away from Demon Emperor Island and the Demon Graveyard, and on the other hand, he was carefully observing everything around him, just in case. After all, this was the demon race's territory and the center of the demon race's forbidden area. He had to be careful. Time was tight. The longer the battle dragged on, the more dangerous it would be for him. Once the other Gray Demonic Beast Race experts arrived, even if he could severely injure the Gray Great Sage, he would have to retreat. There was a possibility of killing him this time, but it was risky. If he could kill him successfully, it would be a great success for both him and the human race. It all depended on this battle. Come on. Lin Feng's fighting spirit surged. The gray great sage had come. Just as Lin Feng had sensed, this time, he was the only one who came. A dense gray aura covered his entire body. A pair of bright eyes were sinister and ruthless, just like a demon, fiercely staring at him. It would be nonsense to say that he did not have any intelligence. Such a strong hatred could be deeply felt even from such a distance. It was a great hatred. Is it because I ruined your plan? Lin Feng smiled. His eyes flashed, and an illusory spear appeared in his hand. When dealing with an opponent at the level of the Gray Great Sage, he would either not make a move, or he would not hold back. He would go all out. In the previous war, you and I were not fated to fight. Today, I can make up for it. Lin Feng snorted. His surging aura instantly soared. Actually, he was still a little angry with the Gray Great Sage. It was not only because he was the commander of the demon race, but also because he had occupied another person's body. This kind of despicable and shameless act of seizing another person's body was something he hated the most. Die! Lin Feng shouted angrily. The anger in his heart turned into an incisive spear strike. The realm of his spear art was constantly improving. Especially in the past 3 months, Lin Feng had been seeking opportunities in the cracks and killing his opponent while surrounded by enemies. Now, Lin Feng's spear art was sharper, more direct, and more decisive. Once he made a move, it was thunderous, clean, and ruthless. Chi, like a roaming dragon. The illusory spear was mixed with the power of heaven and earth. It contained a portion of the 7-inch fist's ingenuity and directly doubled the power of the spear. Lin Feng did not spend the past 3 months in vain. Instead, he had been honing his skills and growing through continuous battles. The current Lin Feng was fully deserving of the title of the strongest person in the Douling world. With just his spear art alone, he could kill Huang Jifu. Lin Feng dared to challenge the Gray Great Sage alone. Naturally, he was full of confidence. Pong. The Gray Great Sage's staff art was also extraordinary. It was domineering and had the shadow of the Great Sage's skill. It was like a huge mountain pressing down. It combined the Tao of strength and Tao of metal perfectly. It even contained some Tao of space. However, that was all. There's no improvement at all, Lin Feng said in a low voice. The illusory spear in his hand suddenly lengthened. Lin Feng stepped in the air with his left foot. The muscles in his hands suddenly expanded and the rich power of heaven and earth instantly exploded. Pung! Pung! Using force against force, the 7-inch fist's ingenuity instantly increased by 4 times. Lin Feng's veins bulged and his entire body radiated battle intent. Boom! A clean spear strike directly broke through the Gray Great Sage's staff. The current Lin Feng, regardless of whether it was strength, spear art concept, or weapon, was not inferior to the Great Sage of the past. Indeed, it was the Great Sage of the past, and not the current Great Sage. If it was the current Great Sage who had combined the Tao of metal, Tao of strength, and Tao of space perfectly, his spear art realm would be 1 level higher than Lin Feng's. However, when the Gray Great Sage in front of him occupied the Great Sage's body, the Great Sage's strength was only this much. It stopped at the battle on Demon Sovereign Island. In the Douling world, the Gray Great Sage was one of the best. Coupled with his undying body and the uniqueness of the Gray Great Sage's aura, his strength was enough to surpass which Emperor Jiang and be on the same level as Huang Jifu. However, in front of him now, the Gray Great Sage was already inferior. Roar! With a furious roar, the Gray Great Sage's expression was extremely ugly. He was repelled with 1 strike. Obviously, it was beyond his expectations. His body seemed to be injured. However, the tyrannical death aura densely covered his body and did not cause him any fatal injuries. Almost in the blink of an eye, the Gray Great Sage exploded again. It was like a shooting star streaking across the sky. Its momentum was even stronger than before. The death aura was indeed powerful. Undying body. Lin Feng's eyes were deep as he snorted coldly. I would like to see how durable your undying body is. The illusory spear in Lin Feng's hand shone again. Suddenly, he dashed out as well. Neither was willing to give in. He had the absolute advantage in the battle. This one-on-one battle, he was determined to win. Bang, bang, bang. Spear after spear, Lin Feng's attacks were as ferocious as a tiger pouncing on its prey. He did not give the gray great sage any chance. He did not use the 7-inch fist, because once he used the 7-inch fist, his strength would be completely unleashed. If he could not kill the gray great sage, his strength would be weakened. Indeed, with Lin Feng's current strength, he had the absolute advantage. There was no need for him to spend so much effort to restrain the gray great sage. He had the advantage in every spear strike. It was enough to injure the gray great sage. Undying body? The so-called undying body was just a smokescreen. In the end, it was because of the death aura. However, the death aura was still limited. No matter how mysterious and powerful it was still a type of energy. Since it was an energy, there would be a day when it would be exhausted, especially since the death aura was the opposite of the chi of heaven and earth. It proved that there was a kind of commonality between the two. Therefore, he believed that every time the gray great sage repaired his body and recovered from his injuries, his strength would be weakened. It cannot be seen only because he had yet to reach his limit. There was still some death aura left, and this was only temporary. Just like the fog dissipating, the fog that covered one's eyes would disperse one day. As for the gray great sage's flaws and weaknesses, they would eventually appear as the battle continued. Roar! He roared furiously. All the strength in his body went berserk. The gray great sage attacked, as if he had gone mad. He waved his giant rod without any fear of death. It was as if he wanted to perish together with Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng was unperturbed. He blocked and dodged at the same time. His aura was firmly locked onto the gray great sage. He did not give him any space to escape. Although he could not sense how much death aura had been exhausted, he was sure that the gray great sage did not have much death aura left. It was clear from his anxious appearance. Trying to escape in the chaos? Dream on. Leave behind this body that does not belong to you. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he shouted. Chi! The illusory spear shone and broke the gray great sage's defense once again. However, this time, there was a flaw in the gray aura's defense. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He felt that the defense in front of him had loosened. The power of the illusory spear instantly erupted. Boom! The gray great sage screamed. Chapter 1676. One spear strike, and he was severely injured. Lin Feng's current strength had obviously surpassed the gray great sage. Thick gray energy gushed into the wound like spring water, trying to mend the huge crack. However, it was too late. The gray great sage retreated with a ferocious expression, but he was met with Lin Feng's spear, which was as powerful as 1,000 armies. It left a huge wound on his lower abdomen. Sizzle, sizzle. The wound spread rapidly. The power of heaven and earth corroded the gray great sage's body like maggots. Perhaps the power of heaven and earth itself did not possess such an ability, but the gray great sage happened to possess an energy that was the exact opposite of the power of heaven and earth, the energy of death. It was like water and fire that did not mix. Once the power of one side completely surpassed the other, its destructive power would be extremely shocking. Ah! His hysterical roar sounded like he was in pain and venting. However, it made Lin Feng suspicious. Could an undead expert also feel pain? Or was he just venting the frustration in his heart? There was no need to think too much. Lin Feng would not let go of such a great opportunity. The reason why he had not used the real 7-inch fist was because, firstly, the 7-inch fist would hurt himself before injuring the enemy. Secondly, he was confident in dealing with the gray great sage. Thirdly, and most importantly, he did not want to completely destroy the gray great sage. Once the 7-inch fist was unleashed with his current strength, he would not be able to control his strength accurately. It could be said that he could unleash it, but not retract it. At that time, he might be able to kill the Gray Great Sage or even destroy his body and soul. However, at the same time, the body that the Gray Great Sage occupied would also be buried with him. In his heart, he did not want to see such an ending. Perhaps he was only acquainted with the Great Sage. However, he treated him like how he treated Gu Sheng in the past. Although they were on opposite sides, there was no hatred between them. Instead, there was a kind of admiration and appreciation. He did not want to destroy the body of an expert and cut off his cultivation path. Perhaps the Great Sage could still rely on the heavenly treasure Earth Pillar to reconstruct his body and continue to cultivate and become stronger. However, who would want to become a dysentery? With the Great Sage's ability, if he could regain his body in the future, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds, and he would become a true expert. However, it would not be easy to kill the Gray Great Sage without destroying his physical body. However, this was an opportunity. Hua, hua. The power of heaven and earth clashed with the chi of death, gaining the upper hand. It was the constant erosion that drove away the chi of death. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and his heart was calm. Although it was indeed difficult to operate it accurately, it did not mean that it was impossible. The gray energy was the water of the experts of death. It was their root. As long as he could completely exhaust the aura of death, it would be like cutting off water and food. These undead experts that should not have existed would very likely be destroyed in both body and soul. Regardless of whether this method would work or not, at the moment, he was willing to give it a try, especially when there wasn't much risk involved. The Gray Great Sage was completely under his control. He was dead meat. Escape? He couldn't escape. Not only was Lin Feng's aura locked onto the Gray Great Sage, but he had also completely sealed off his path of escape. In close combat, the Gray Great Sage had no other choice but to fight to the death. The gray energy rapidly decreased in a short period of time. The Gray Great Saint's injuries worsened, and he became weaker and weaker. Furious roars continued to ring out. The furious roars made the Gray Great Sage look like a devil. His face was ferocious as he gnashed his teeth. However, Lin Feng was happy and content. Victory was within his grasp. Soon, almost there, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was full of confidence. He could completely see the Gray Great Sage's anxiety and uneasiness. He could see the Gray Great Sage's anxiety and fear. It was obvious that his method was correct. As time passed, the Gray Great Sage's strength was weakening bit by bit. The aura of death was fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, there were many things that would not go according to one's wishes. Swish! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His expression changed slightly. He glanced into the distance and sensed hundreds of auras coming from the direction of the demon race's forbidden area at an extremely fast speed. They were like a pack of wolves pouncing on him. Needless to say, they knew their identity and purpose. They were the Gray Great Sage that had surrounded him time and time again. They had appeared again. Want to save him? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. However, he was a little anxious. If he had 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, he was absolutely confident that he could torture the Gray Great Sage to death. However, now, he was in a dilemma. Although the Gray Great Sage was seriously injured, there was no difference between a serious injury and a light injury to the Great Sage of Death. They relied on the aura of death. As long as the aura of death was not exhausted, any serious injury could be healed. The Gray Great Sage was in such a situation. There was still some aura of death left. Damn it! Lin Feng felt a headache. He was in a dilemma. Although he had only killed the Gray Great Sage in a short time, he was confident that as long as he used the 7-inch fist, the Gray Great Sage would definitely die. However, at the same time, he was afraid that the Gray Great Sage's body would turn into ashes along with him. However, if he wanted to continue wasting time, once the hundreds of Gray Great Sage of Death in front of him arrived, he was afraid that he would no longer have the chance to kill them. If he let the tiger return to the mountain, There would be endless trouble in the future. To kill or not to kill. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly brightened. He felt that there was another aura not far behind him. However, it was completely different from the aura of the gray, great sage of death. It was the purest power of heaven and earth. It was of the same origin as him, and he was very familiar with it. In the entire Douling world, there was only one other person besides him who cultivated the way of the body. That was the real commander of the demon clan, the real great sage. Why was he here? Although Lin Feng was a little surprised, he instantly turned from worry to joy and smiled. Originally, he had planned to use the 7-inch fist at all costs. No matter what the result was, at least he could not let the tiger go back to the mountain. However, the appearance of the great sage made him change his mind. No matter what, he could be said to have done the humans a great favor in the previous war. Of course, he had to return the favor. It was good that he came. Many times when an opportunity was right in front of you, it was up to you to cherish it and grasp it. This was the case for the great sage. If he missed this opportunity, he might not be able to find his body again. However, he appeared at the most critical moment and grasped this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Right now, the great sage had less than 10% of his strength left, and his death aura was severely depleted. This was a good opportunity for the great sage. As for himself, I'll lend you a hand again. Lin Feng smiled valiantly, his eyes bright. The illusory spear in his hand drew countless afterimages and blasted toward the great sage once again. Which side was faster? More or less? Although the Gray Demon Clan expert was closer, Feng Great Sage's speed was faster. After all, his strength was there for all to see. In addition, he cultivated the way of the body, so his speed was naturally astonishing. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Again and again, he completely controlled the great sage with his spear. Bang! 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 After 3 consecutive attacks, the great sage was like a marionette, unable to fight back at all. He was completely stunned. Lin Feng's strength restrained him in all aspects. Time and time again, he was forced into a desperate situation. The great sage's eyes, which were originally shining with a bright light, were dim and colorless. He had lost all confidence. His death aura was severely depleted, and his body was covered in wounds. Streams of death aura surged into his body, turning from a gushing spring into a drop of water. His recovery speed had decreased by more than 100 times. He was no longer at his peak. Swoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. At this moment, the uninvited guest had arrived in an instant. What was different was that on one side, there was a densely packed gray army of experts that resembled an inescapable net, while on the other side, there was a lone great saint who came alone. The difference in strength was too great. The speed of their arrival was almost the same. But the great sage's ownership had already been decided because the initiative was firmly in Lin Feng's hands. Quick! Lin Feng's eyes widened, and he roared. His spear light was like a shadow, forming a torrential rain, blasting the great sage towards the true great sage. There was no need for too many words, and there was no time to communicate. The moment Lin Feng blasted the great sage away, he instantly turned around, his face solemn. Bang! The chi of heaven and earth instantly exploded. As Lin Feng roared, the illusory spear suddenly shrank into the shape of a ball. His veins were exposed, and his arms swelled. The rich chi of heaven and earth formed a pure energy ball, and the energy ball in Lin Feng's hands was like thunder. In an instant, break! Lin Feng roared. The ball of light, which was formed by the pure chi of heaven and earth, suddenly exploded, forming a dazzling brilliance. Extreme waste. The use of the chi of heaven and earth could be said to be a complete waste. However, Lin Feng had no choice but to do so. Boom! As if his chest had been hit hard, Lin Feng's face turned ugly. He felt an extremely strong force, but he had expected it. The energy ball formed by the explosion of the chi of heaven and earth would naturally rebound, and there would be a reaction. Injuries were inevitable, but it was worth it. As long as he could buy some time, it would be enough. Good. As he retreated, Lin Feng's lips curled into a slight smile. Because at this moment, the great saint's aura had disappeared. Obviously, the great saint knew what he had to do now. Without wasting any time, the great saint directly entered the original body and competed with the great saint for control of this body. This was the most direct competition, and the outcome was simple and clear. Whoever was stronger, the body would belong to that person. Although the host has the advantage in defense, the great saint has been severely injured by me. His strength has been greatly reduced, and he is in a weakened state. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he quickly judged in his heart. If he did not guess wrongly, he believed that the battle for the great saint's body would end soon. In his opinion, there was more than a 90% chance that the great saint would be able to retake his body. Oh, as soon as he thought about it, Lin Feng also re-examined his body, and he was pleasantly surprised. What a strong defense. Lin Feng smiled, looking at the pango armor on his body, and he was quite satisfied. With such a close attack and such a strong explosion, he would have been injured no matter what. However, because of the pango armor, he only suffered a little impact. He was not injured at all, as expected of the armor worn by the almighty pango. Even if it is not compatible, it is already so strong. If it is compatible, this armor, how strong will it be? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Thinking of this, he was full of anticipation. Chapter 1677. Retreat. After one move, Lin Feng immediately retreated to the side. As expected, all the gray demon experts immediately chased after him, completely ignoring the great sage. It was just as Lin Feng expected. What was the purpose of their sudden appearance? The answer was simple. They wanted to save the great sage. Now that he had left, it meant that their so-called mission was completed. As for what happened to the great sage's body, these gray demon experts couldn't determine. They didn't have this ability. In fact, even ordinary ancient martial art practitioners couldn't determine this. Come, all of you come. Lin Feng deliberately slowed down to attract all the gray demon experts. Although these gray demon experts might not be able to tell, it was better to keep them away from the great sage for safety's sake. If the great sage really regained his body and was surrounded by these gray demon experts, that would truly be a double loss. His death would be too unjust. Some things should be avoided if possible. More than 50% left. Lin Feng calculated in his mind. The amount of power of the heavens and earth determined how long he could continue fighting. Facing hundreds of gray demon experts was like looking at prey. It would be a pity if he didn't kill some of them. These powerful existences that were a threat to humans, he would kill as many as he could. Swish! Lin Feng was like a sharp arrow, instantly piercing through the gray demon expert's formation. He was as fast as lightning. After 7 days, he started his massacre again. Chi! Beams of cold light flashed, and the gray demon experts were killed one by one. The power of the heavens and earth surged in and destroyed crazily. Even the gray energy and flesh exploded, leaving nothing behind. Lin Feng was decisive and ruthless. Being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to himself. He understood this principle clearly. The more gray demon experts he killed, the better. However, there's something different. Lin Feng thought to himself. These gray demon experts were slightly different from the ones he killed before. The aura of death they had wasn't as strong as the 2,000 he killed before. Their strength was also much weaker. Moreover, they lacked the ruthlessness and persistence of the gray demon experts. They were a little slow and hesitant when they killed. Or perhaps they were confused. It was as if they didn't merge with the aura of death perfectly. Or perhaps they didn't know what they were doing. It was very strange. Maybe it's because of this that they didn't appear again. Lin Feng thought to himself, and vaguely came to a realization. He had thought that the gray demons were afraid of him, but now it seemed that it was because the fusion was not perfect. These gray demons were like half-finished products, and their strength was not enough. If the gray great sage wasn't in danger, they probably wouldn't have appeared. There was a huge difference between a half-finished product and a finished product. With the same number of 300, the completed gray demon experts could force back the doppelgangers in their peak state, but the semi-finished products, even if he only had 50% of the power of heaven and earth left, he could still kill all of them. Lin Feng was determined to kill. Perfect. It's easy to kill these half-finished products. If they really fuse perfectly, it'll be much more difficult to kill them. We can't miss this opportunity. Such an opportunity was hard to come by. Heaven and earth turned upside down. After killing for 4 hours and killing nearly 300, Lin Feng finally stopped and fled. However, it wasn't because he had exhausted all his energy and fled. Instead, it was because he had done it on purpose. Whoosh! Lin Feng concealed his aura like a kite and quietly followed behind the remaining less than 100 gray demons. A glint flashed across his eyes. He had absolute confidence in killing all these weak gray demons. After all, he still had nearly 20% of the power of heaven and earth left. It was more than enough. However, it wasn't very useful. What he wanted was to control the entire situation. It was important information. Where did these gray demon experts come from? What was the purpose of their existence? Why didn't they appear during the battle between humans and demons? Why did they appear in large numbers now? Could their sudden appearance be related to the fiend star that Shui Ruhuan mentioned? All of this he wanted to know. Of course, even if he couldn't obtain any important information, just being able to find out where these great demons were and the exact number of them was already good enough. At least he could take the initiative and not be so passive. Information and intelligence were very important. Tracking was not difficult for Lin Feng. He had the strongest sensing ability in the entire Douling world. Lin Feng was not only an expert in escaping, but also in tracking. He didn't do it before because there was nothing worth it for him to do so. Soon, the gray demons were like old horses that knew the way and returned with great familiarity. Lin Feng, on the other hand, stopped. It wasn't that he didn't want to follow them. It was because he had already found their home. With his eyes shining, Lin Feng floated in the air. He pursed his lips and looked ahead. His expression was extremely complicated. It was a layer of gray aura that covered everything. It looked like a pool of thick gray fog, and nothing could be seen. Outside the gray fog, it formed a shape like an electric net, as if warning cultivators who tried to enter in vain. Those who entered were courting death. What was this place? At this moment, any human expert would not be able to answer. However, Lin Feng knew clearly. Cemetery, demon race cemetery. Lin Feng muttered. He couldn't hide the fear in his heart. In the demon race domain, the place that left the deepest and most unforgettable impression on him was undoubtedly the demon race cemetery that contained endless terror. It was because he almost died here that day. Although it was covered by the gray fog and he couldn't see its outline, its position wouldn't change. It was right beside Demon Emperor Island. This was undoubtedly the demon race cemetery. They really came from here. Lin Feng's eyes were deep. He was 100% sure now. He was 90% sure before. However, now that he saw it with his own eyes, he didn't need to doubt it anymore. What else could have such a strong death aura other than the cemetery? The only question left was, were they related to the demon star? Or was the cemetery related to the demon star? There are huge changes. Lin Feng looked at the thick gray fog and thought to himself. He could see a thing or two from the changes outside the cemetery. He wouldn't believe that the interior of the cemetery didn't change. Why did more than 2,000 gray demons suddenly appear? Why did the exterior of the cemetery suddenly change? Everything pointed to the depths of the cemetery. Even pointed to the unpredictable world-exterminating demon god. Whoosh! A cold light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. He came to a conclusion. It wasn't the best time to explore the cemetery. After all, the consecutive battles had consumed a lot of strength. No matter what, he had to recover his strength first. Moreover, entering the cemetery wasn't a trivial matter. He had to think carefully. Being impulsive and reckless would only cause trouble. Chapter 1678. Lin Feng returned quickly. He wanted to find the great sage, but it was empty. There was no trace of him at all. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Did I succeed? Lin Feng frowned. Or did I fail? He wondered. Lin Feng looked around, but there was no information. Originally, he had wanted to protect the great sage for a while, fearing that the great sage would once again be killed by the gray demon once he regained his body. After all, the great sage's physical body had been severely damaged by him. It was natural for him to help others until the end. However, there was nothing he could do if he could not find the great sage. It's up to him. I've helped him as much as I can. Lin Feng nodded, not too concerned. He had done his best and left the rest to fate. After all, he had only met the great sage by chance. They had some friendship, but they could not be considered close friends. It was enough to help him to this extent. He could not even take care of himself now. The threat of the fiend star was intensifying, and the mystery was being revealed bit by bit. There were many things he needed to do. The most important thing was to find a secluded place to recover his strength. In a cave on a barren island, weeds grew everywhere, and a huge rock blocked the entrance of the cave. No one knew that an important person was hiding in this small cave. It was the human expert who had turned the entire demon race upside down, Lin Feng. He sat cross-legged. The rich power of heaven and earth formed a thin layer of fog that was absorbed by his skin and gathered in his body. Huff, huff, Lin Feng took a deep breath. His chest rose and fell slightly, and he quickly calmed down. Ha! The power of heaven and earth outside his body dissipated. His body was completely saturated and could not contain any more power of heaven and earth. Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Boom! Instantly, the huge rock exploded. Lin Feng walked out of the cave with heavy steps. His strength had recovered to its peak. However, there was a hint of hesitation on his face, as well as a hint of worry. The more he probed, the more fearful he became. All the clues pointed to the most terrifying existence in the demon graveyard, the world-destroying fiend celestial. That terrifying existence in front of whom he was as insignificant as an ant. If he is really the Devil Star, what can I do? Thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a trace of coldness in his heart. When the disparity in strength reached a certain level, even resisting would be unnecessary because they weren't on the same level. What to do? Were they really going to enter the cemetery? Oh! Lin Feng pursed his lips and slowly floated up into the air. His eyes were filled with worry as he looked into the distance, unable to make a decision. At this critical juncture, every step was crucial. A single mistake could lead to a complete loss, so he had to be cautious. Wrong, it wasn't scary. The scary thing was that once a wrong decision was made, there was no turning back. That was the scary part. If he went to the cemetery, if the world-destroying devil god was not the Devil Star, wouldn't he be courting death by provoking this sleeping devil for no reason? But if he didn't go, how would he know whether he was the Devil Star or not? How would he know the current situation in the cemetery and what kind of secrets the demons were hiding? Lin Feng was very conflicted. He hesitated and couldn't make a decision. His original body had even held a meeting in the divine realm and gathered his father, Shun, Qin Lian Huang, Fong Ning, and other wise men. He told them what he had seen and heard, but still couldn't come to a conclusion. It was as if he had reached a fork in the road and didn't know how to choose the right path. Or perhaps both paths were wrong? He could only rely on himself for everything. Clues, I still need enough clues. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he thought to himself. With enough clues, he could make a more accurate judgment and be more confident in choosing the right path. Suddenly, Lin Feng clenched his fists and his eyes flashed. He nodded and murmured, I seem to have missed something. Yes, it's the gray demons. Their origin. They seem to be the elites of various races, including the 12 demon stars. But I didn't see any demon kings or demon emperors. If these gray demons were really evolved from the demon race, why aren't there any demon kings or demon emperors? Or, I just didn't see any demon kings or demon emperors. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully and murmured, if this is the trump card of the demon race, then the ones who know the secret are most likely demon kings or demon emperors. If they haven't become undead, I have a chance to get some information from them. That's it. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he focused his mind. There was a chance. Maybe the probability was less than 50%, but how could he know if it would work without trying? Demon Emperor Island. This is the essence of the demon race, and there are usually demon emperors guarding it. Lin Feng nodded gently and thought, I wanted to go to Demon Emperor Island, and now it's convenient. It'll be good if I can meet a demon king or demon emperor. Even if I can't, it's not bad. I'll know what the situation is after I check it out. Thinking of this, Lin Feng moved instantly. Like a meteor streaking across the sky, it instantly flew towards the demon's sovereign island. Again, previously, he wanted to go to Demon Emperor Island, but he was intercepted by the Gray Great Sage and failed. But now, there was nothing blocking his way. Swoosh! Lin Feng entered Demon Emperor Island without restraint, as if he had passed through a layer of mirror and entered the demon race's forbidden land for the second time. In fact, it was the first time for his clone, because the one who entered last time was his main body. As soon as he entered, he was surrounded by countless elite demon race experts. What would happen this time? As expected, as soon as Lin Feng entered, he felt the whistling of the wind and the overflowing killing intent. It was just as he expected. Demon Emperor Island had its own unique magnetic field range, just like a one-sided mirror. One couldn't sense the inside from the outside, but could clearly sense the outside from the inside. An awe-inspiring, murderous aura rushed over, and a bone-chilling coldness with a power that made one's heart tremble came from all directions, blocking all paths of escape. The battle array was terrifying. However, that was all. Even his original body back then could easily deal with these so-called elite experts. So how could his doppelganger be obstructed today? It was several times faster than clearing the place that day. Who could fight against his clone? Buzz, buzz. The doomsday spear flashed with a terrifying light, and fresh blood dripped down. Lin Feng stood proudly like a god of war, and there wasn't a single corpse around him because all the dead demon race experts were destroyed in body and soul. But it was done deliberately. Lin Feng didn't want to leave any future troubles, especially when the demon race had the aura of death. The thick smell of blood floated in the air, making one feel nauseous. This place was like purgatory on Earth, but it was the demon race's purgatory. The number is much less. Lin Feng was deep in thought. It's only 1/3 of the first time, which is very unusual. Lin Feng looked around and furrowed his brows. This wasn't the only unusual place, and the demon race experts who surrounded him this time were really just elites. There weren't any special experts, and there wasn't even a sage king, which was very strange. And after fighting for so long, there wasn't a single demon king or demon emperor, which was even stranger. That day, it was him who led the great sage away from Demon Emperor Island, which made Demon Emperor Island empty. But today was his first time here, and the great sage didn't appear from Demon Emperor Island, which meant that the one guarding Demon Emperor Island wasn't the great sage. Logically speaking, there should be at least a demon king or demon emperor on Demon Emperor Island. But there wasn't one. Did they not exist, or was there something else? Wow! Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he was pondering. He looked at the 7-story island in front of him, which was covered with layers of restrictions, and the place of inheritance of the demon race's treasures. He wasn't in a hurry to enter, but stepped on the land and sat cross-legged on the ground like an old monk. Lin Feng, what was he doing? Hiss, hiss. Faint chi of heaven and earth merged into his body, but the speed of recovery wasn't fast. Lin Feng didn't lose much either, and Lin Feng was always in a state of alert. He was waiting for everything that might happen, waiting for the changes on Demon Emperor Island. Waiting quietly, demon kings and demon emperors might appear. The other experts of the demon race who were cultivating on the seven-story island might appear as well. Lin Feng was skilled and daring, and he was waiting for them to appear. 2 hours. 4 hours. 8 hours. After a total of 24 hours, Lin Feng sighed deeply and stood up. During this period of time, he had indeed killed many elite experts of the demon race who were cultivating on the seven-story island, but there wasn't a single demon king or demon emperor among them. Even sage kings didn't appear. It was as if all of them had disappeared overnight, and they had even given up on Demon Emperor Island. What was the demon race doing? Looking ahead, Lin Feng was getting more and more curious, and he was also getting more and more frightened. The calmer it was now, the more terrifying the storm that would follow would be. I failed, Lin Feng muttered softly. Originally, he wanted to look for demon kings or demon emperors, but his plan ended in failure. There weren't many paths left for him, and there wasn't much time left for him either. Looking at the seven-story island that towered into the clouds in front of him, Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. The forbidden land of the demon race that he desperately wanted to enter back then seemed to have opened its door for him to enter. Danger? Back then, he was able to break through the 6th layer of the restriction. Even if his clone wanted to enter the 7th layer of the restriction, it shouldn't be difficult, right? No hurry. I'll search through the layers one by one. Last time, I came in a hurry and left in a hurry. This time, I could take a good look and dig 3 feet into the ground. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Since he couldn't get an accurate answer, there was no need to force it. The more anxious he was, the more chaotic he would be. Sometimes if he changed his state and angle, he might have a different idea. Since he had come to this Demon Emperor Island, there were countless treasures of the demon race hidden here. Wouldn't it be a great sin if he didn't take them? He might not need them, but the human race was currently in the development stage. They could digest as many treasures as they wanted. How could he return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain? All right, let me see how many treasures the demon race has. Lin Feng smiled valiantly. He relaxed his mind and walked forward. Chapter 1679. He was familiar with the place. To Lin Feng, Demon Emperor Island was like his own home. He could go anywhere he wanted. He was very familiar with it. There was a Demon Emperor Island with 7 layers of islands. Connecting the 7 layers of islands was a white cylinder in the center. The stronger one was, the higher the level one could enter. Lin Feng didn't enter the 5th level, the 6th level, or even the highest level, the 7th level. Instead, he went to the lowest level. That was the 1st level of Demon Emperor Island. This was the area with the most demon clans. Together with the 2nd and 3rd levels, it could be said to be the root of the demon clans. Every level had a restriction where treasures or inheritances were placed. It was quite special. The 1st level contained the cultivation manuals of the various demon clans. The 2nd level contained the inheritances and treasures of the various demon clans, and the 3rd level was the saint level passage. It was difficult for the demon clans to transform, and even more difficult to break through to the saint level. However, it was precisely because of the existence of Demon Emperor Island that the demon clans were so prosperous. The elites of the various demon clans were sent to Demon Emperor Island one by one. They first entered the 1st level to cultivate. As time passed, when their strength reached a certain level, they would enter the 2nd level. Then they would go to the 3rd level and force their way through the saint level passage. If they succeeded, they would succeed. If not, they would die. It was very cruel, but it was very efficient. Relying on the large-scale spirit-gathering array, the demon clans have the capital to squander. Lin Feng nodded gently and slowly opened his eyes. In front of him was a Star-Lord Realm Demon Clan's expert with dull eyes. It was too easy for Lin Feng, who was at the peak of the Saint King realm, to forcibly invade his mind and obtain his memories. The difference in strength was huge. This Demon Clan's expert soul was like a grain of rice in front of him. The simplest and most direct way to obtain the most accurate information about Demon Emperor Island was to search his soul and obtain his memories. The first time he entered Demon Emperor Island, he obtained the general information. At that time, he captured a Demon Fox expert and threatened it by force. But now, the method was more direct. First, the second level is not of much use to us humans. But the third level, Lin Feng muttered to himself, deep in thought. He wasn't sure, but it was worth a try. This was because to a certain extent, humans and demons had a lot in common. For example, numbers. Humans and demons had the largest population in the Douling world. Their average aptitude might not be high, but they could make up for quality with quantity. Furthermore, humans were much more intelligent than demons, so they had a much higher chance of breaking through to the saint level through their own cultivation. However, the human population was simply too large. The reason why they were able to develop so quickly was because of the small spirit gathering formation and the accumulation of countless precious resources. However, this was not a long-term solution. If humans can use the saint-level passageway on the third floor, it would be a great gain. Lin Feng nodded. The difference between the saint level and those below the saint level was huge. Even 100 peak cosmic sea states couldn't compare to one saint. And what was the success rate of the saint-level passageway? Very low. However, it was at least a way. No matter how low it would not be lower than 1%. It could also let some peak cosmic sea states with limited aptitudes and no hope of breaking through try. The human population was quite large, and they possessed astonishing powers of enlightenment. If they could produce as many holy stage powerful beings as the demon race did, then the Do spirit world would be. Humans would be able to reign supreme. Let's discuss this later. Lin Feng nodded. 2 piercing lights flashed, and 2 demon race powerful beings instantly turned into nothingness. No matter what, the first and second floors of the Demon Emperor Island are of no use to us humans. Then, let's destroy them. Lin Feng's expression was calm. However, the sudden thought in his mind was equivalent to sentencing the demon race to death. Not only would the demon race elites on the first floor of the Demon Emperor Island be destroyed, but it would also directly destroy the future of the demon race, harming others without benefiting oneself. No, weakening the threat of the demon race and reducing the strength of the demon race was equivalent to increasing the combat power of the human race. It was just a change of method. The massacre began again. The first floor of the Demon Emperor Island was densely packed with demon race minions. To Lin Feng, their combat power was only 5. Even the strongest cosmic sea state would be killed instantly. He didn't even need to use the heaven and earth power. In an instant, there were wails and howls. The first floor of the Demon Emperor Island was bathed in blood. It was very cruel. However, this was war. There was no mercy in a war between races. Lin Feng's expression didn't change as he massacred. Even Wing, who hadn't come out for a breath of fresh air for a long time, appeared. Relying on his terrifying covering ability, he cleaned up the entire first floor of the Demon Emperor Island without any blind spots. It was a full day and night. It could be seen how big the Demon Emperor Island was. The first floor was the largest. Lin Feng's hands were about to go limp from all the killing. The dense, spiritual energy was densely packed with a nauseating smell of blood. However, Lin Feng didn't care at all. He directly collected all the demon race's cultivation secret manuals. He didn't care if there were backups, but since he saw it, he naturally wouldn't miss it. Until the entire first floor of the Demon Emperor Island became silent. Lin Feng's expression was calm as he entered the second floor. According to the script, after cleaning up the first floor, he naturally wouldn't let go of the second floor. In fact, the strength of the demon race experts on the second floor was much stronger than the first floor. If the demon race experts on the first floor were the common trash, then the second floor would be the elites of the common trash. However, the so-called elites were only Star Ocean level existences. To Lin Feng, there wasn't much difference. The only difference was the number of demon race experts on the second floor was much lesser. However, it was unknown whether they fled in fear or there were only so few of them to begin with. He didn't care. Lin Feng didn't have the time to chase after those who fled. The cleaning on the second floor lasted a lot shorter. It was completed in 6 hours. Lin Feng didn't stop at all. and went straight to the fourth floor. There was a restriction that stimulated the demon race's potential. It was set up for saint-level demon race experts. Once a demon race expert passed through the third floor and became a saint, he would be able to stimulate his potential here and obtain stronger abilities. He would be able to go further on the path of cultivation. The resources were limited. Therefore, only saint-level demon race experts could use it. There were already saint-level demon race experts here. However, he would still kill without hesitation. Lin Feng was like an executioner. Wherever he went, he would kill. The third floor, the fourth floor, the fifth floor. The area was getting smaller and smaller. Lin Feng's killing speed was also getting faster and faster. After all, killing a Star Ocean-level demon race expert was just one move. Killing a Saint-level demon race expert was actually just one move. To Lin Feng, the difference wasn't that big. Soon, Lin Feng came to the end of the last time he entered Demon Emperor Island, the sixth floor. Dual Extreme Monarch Array. Only those with demon race bloodline could enter the gate of two extremes. That day, he found the Star Origin Stone here. It was a close call. Fortunately, Lin Feng was calm and had the demeanor of a general. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to leave before the great sage came back. It would be a long time before he could save his father. But now the gate of two extremes. Lin Feng smiled indifferently and calmly walked in. Gate of life? Gate of death. Only those with pure demon race bloodline could enter. Last time, Lin Feng had relied on Refined Puppet, a demon with a pure bloodline, to enter. This time, however, Lin Feng had easily entered the spirit gate. No demon race bloodline. It didn't matter. Only one person could enter the gate of two extremes. It also didn't matter. With Duo, an array master, this wasn't a problem. As expected, the array is confusing to laymen and dangerous to professionals. But in front of a true master, it's like child's play. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. Dual Extreme Monarch Array? It was cracked by Duo directly. He didn't even need to make a move. He just casually gave him a few pointers, and he cracked the Dual Extreme Monarch Array, the mysterious gate of two extremes. The gate of life and gate of death were intertwined like a stack of paper. The gate of two extremes instantly merged into one. The original forked road had now become a bright road. Moreover, the restriction was as good as new. This is the real treasure trove of the demon race. The treasures of the sorcerer race, ancient race, and human race that were looted by the demon race in the past war of the sorcerer and demon race are all here. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had just entered a teleportation gate. He casually put away many unknown Khanate treasures on the ground and immediately entered another teleportation gate. Identify? Was there a need? There was no time limit. This time, he could take whatever he wanted. No matter what it was, he would hide it in his pocket. As for how many treasures there were and which ones were suitable, it wouldn't be too late to let Shun and the others take their time to choose. What he wanted to do was to plunder. He wanted to plunder the biggest treasure trove of the demon race. Time was limited last time. I only took half of the Star Origin Stone. This time, I can take the rest. Lin Feng already had a plan. Actually, in his opinion, all the treasures here combined might not be comparable to the remaining half of the Star Origin Stone. No matter what the value was, after all, things that were useful to Lin Feng now. Actually, it was too little. Star fruit? No need. Treasure to strengthen one's physique? Similarly, no need. Even if it was a top-notch Khanate treasure, it was useless to Lin Feng. He was not even interested in the 9-story Golden Brilliance Pagoda, which was ranked first on the Supreme Doling Warrior ranking. Although the demon race's treasure trove was huge, would there really be treasures that could surpass the 9-story Golden Brilliance Pagoda? His expectations were too high. But no matter what, these odds and ends were worth quite a bit when placed outside, especially to the current human race, who had many things to do. If they were used well, there would be a huge increase in the number of martial sage experts in the human camp. As he pondered, Lin Feng swept past with a swoosh. Everywhere he passed, there was not a speck of dust left. Nothing was left. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Lin Feng was very happy to keep the treasures. He was in a good mood as he kept them in his pocket. Although he did not have a sense of direction and walked around randomly, it did not matter. After all, it did not take much time. Lin Feng passed through many teleportation portals. He was like a bandit robbing a house. He did not leave anything behind. From the beginning to the end, other than taking the remaining star origin stones, there was nothing else that was worth his attention. In the blink of an eye, he had walked around half a circle. Wow! He teleported out again. Just from the corner of his eye, he could see that there were piles of treasures on the ground. It was obvious that they had not been visited yet. However, this time, Lin Feng's expression changed. Swoosh! His eyes, which had not changed for a long time, suddenly lit up like bright stars. Good stuff. Chapter 1680. What he saw was not a treasure, but a huge fiery red pond. However, it was not a pool, but a pool of flames that contained shocking energy. The raging flames burned, and the temperature was high enough to make normal saint-level experts unable to get close. It was quite special, but this was not enough to attract Lin Feng's attention. What truly surprised Lin Feng was the creatures that were alive in the pool of flames. Fire cloud puppets. So many fire cloud puppets. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, his gaze sharp. Almost in the blink of an eye, he could see everything in the flame pool. Fire cloud puppets of different thicknesses were like small tadpoles, swimming in the flame pool happily. These seemingly ordinary creatures were innately born fire spirits and were extraordinarily precious. In the entire Douling world, they were almost completely extinct. It wasn't a natural destruction. Instead, it was a man-made destruction that Lin Feng had looted some time ago. The fire cloud puppets and vicious beast blood essence were matched, and with the 7-star crystal, heavenly crystal, a complete astral treasure puppet could be refined. It was the most perfect substitute for the extreme fire silkworm, and not just one of them. Lin Feng had experimented countless times, but the only one that could truly match vicious beast blood essence was a fire cloud puppet. 100, 1,000, 3,000, 5,000. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up, his heart beating wildly. His senses were extremely fast, and he instantly counted the fire cloud puppets in the entire pool of flames. Their ranks were all different, and the total actually reached the shocking number of 5,000. 5,000 fire cloud puppets, a total of 5,000 fire cloud puppets. Using one fire cloud puppet to refine an astral treasure puppet. How many could he refine? 5,000? No, less than 5,000. Lin Feng frowned, deep in thought. The reason why the refinement of the astral treasure puppet came to an end was because the extreme fire silkworm and fire cloud puppets were exhausted. The extreme fire silkworm matched with divine beast blood essence to refine an astral treasure puppet that summoned divine beast. The fire cloud puppets matched with vicious beast blood essence to refine an astral treasure puppet that summoned vicious beast. As for the heavenly crystal, it was the only thing that was not lacking. Half. Lin Feng nodded. There were still about 2,000 drops of great beast blood essences collected during the refinement process, and that was almost all of the reserves in the entire Dou spirit world. Although the number of fire cloud centipedes was sufficient, there was only so much vicious beast blood essence. After all, there were many things that could not be perfect. It's actually not bad to be able to increase the number of Hui summoned beasts by more than 2,000. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He was quite satisfied. How many ferocious beasts could be summoned by humans? To be able to increase the number by 2,000 was already a huge gain. Over the past 3 months, many more Saint Realm and Saint King Realm Masters have been born. If we fully equip these 2,000 puppets, I believe that it won't be a problem for the human race to increase their combat strength by 30 to 50%. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, his eyes shining brightly. This was indeed an unexpected surprise. Wait a minute, there's a fire cloud centipede. Maybe there's a vicious beast's blood essence? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Thinking so, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly felt a sense of hope. Without hesitation, he went straight for the fire cloud centipedes, provoking these hot-tempered fire cloud centipedes to attack him in anger. However, to the Peak St. King realm Lin Feng, this kind of attack was like scratching an itch. After a while, the entire pool of flames was almost empty, leaving only a few hundred fire cloud centipedes. For Lin Feng, this was to preserve their bloodline. There was no need to be extreme. In any case, with the current materials, more than 4,000 fire cloud centipedes were more than enough. Once again, Yang Kai set off on the path of plundering. This time, it was as if he suddenly had a target. Lin Feng's spirit suddenly rose 100 times as he clearly sensed the presence of every transmission gate. Lin Feng even summoned. In this maze-like area, Yi's role was irreplaceable. With hundreds of millions of winged insects, the detection of the transmission gates was like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, dispersing in the blink of an eye. Clear, very clear. Every region had a panoramic view of the treasures hidden in every region, causing Lin Feng to suck in a deep breath. The demon race's wealth was indeed terrifying. He did not expect that after taking so much, it seemed like he did not even have a quarter of it. While he was amazed in his heart, he continued on the path of treasure hunting. Thinking about it, it was actually normal. Although the demon race had been defeated twice in the Great Magi Demon War, they actually had the absolute advantage in each battle and only lost at the last moment. For example, during the Second Great Magi Demon War, the sorcerer race could be said to have been defeated by the demon race, and even the sorcerer race's territory was occupied. One could imagine how big the demon race's sphere of influence was at that time. Wouldn't it be a sin not to plunder the treasures when there were treasures? The demon race was not an unintelligent wild beast. They also knew how to think. Even if they could not use some strange treasures, they could at least take them away and not let the sorcerer race use them. In the future, there might even be a day when the demon race's experts could use these treasures. Who would have thought that during the Third Great Magi Demon War, even the demon race's headquarters would be invaded by others, and their previous plundering would be a wedding dress for others? Many things were indeed fated. These treasures that originally belonged to the human race, after going around in circles, they still returned to the hands of the human race in the end. Lin Feng did not stand on ceremony. He entered every region carefully and took piles of treasures. The harvest this time could not only be described as bountiful. It was as if he had robbed a mountain of gold. The wealth was so great that it could not be calculated with money. It's fated. With this batch of resources, it will be difficult for the human race not to rise. As long as I can protect the human race for a while and use these resources, the human race will be able to truly dominate the Douling world even if they break through the void and leave. Everything you say is meaningless. Only strength can decide everything. Lin Feng was very satisfied. He could not protect the human race forever. If the human race wanted to become stronger, they had to rely on themselves. And these treasures that he had plundered from the demon race were the best catalyst to help the human race become stronger. 2 hours. 4 hours. 6 hours. In the blink of an eye, 8 hours had passed. Lin Feng's footprints covered the entire treasury. He had entered almost 99% of the regions. His harvest was too great. He even found another reserve of star origin stones. Although it was not as much as before, it was almost half the amount. However, after rummaging through the treasury, he did not find any divine beast blood essence or ferocious beast blood essence. Instead, he found many extreme fire silkworms. Although there is a reserve of divine beast blood essence, there are only about 2,000 extreme fire silkworms. Lin Feng nodded slightly. He thought lightly, but it was enough. With more than 2,000 fire cloud puppets and ferocious beast blood essence, he would be able to refine more than 4,000 Astral Treasures puppets. It was quite shocking. One had to know that these were well-deserved weapons of war. Not to mention dominating the entire Douling world. With these 4,000 Astral Treasure puppets, in addition to the ones that he already had, who would dare to provoke the human race? Even if they were not as strong as the witch race, they would not be too far off, including his own existence. To put it bluntly, the human race could be called the strongest race in the Doling world. Of course, even if they had the strength, they would have to hide it. Sometimes it might not be a good thing to expose too much strength. The things hidden here should be the treasures that the demon race cannot use or can't use. Lin Feng pondered. Actually, at this moment, he more or less understood why there were no divine beast blood essence or ferocious beast blood essence. It was because these two things could be used by the demon race. Like many star fruits, eating them could rapidly increase one's strength. The demon race's experts would not waste natural resources and leave them lying in the treasury. As for things like the extreme fire silkworm and fire cloud puppets, the demon race wanted but could not use them. In the end, it was him who benefited. The treasures are more or less collected. The treasury is more or less explored. Only, there's still a mysterious area. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The reason why he said that he had explored 99% of the area was because there was still a small, mysterious area that he did not dare to explore. It was also because he accidentally discovered that all the teleportation doors here had a fixed direction, but there was one place that was not. It was a teleportation area that could change its coordinates. Previously, a winged insect had entered by accident. However, it disappeared before it saw anything. He sensed it and immediately sent other winged insects to explore again. However, the teleportation area they entered was different. There are still mysteries in the array. This mysterious area is really mysterious, Lin Feng said softly. He was rather curious. It was as if he had turned the entire treasury upside down, but suddenly discovered that there was a secret passage in this empty treasury. There was also an undiscovered chest. Naturally, he was very curious. Treasure? Do you think you can hide it? Lin Feng smiled indifferently. His figure disappeared instantly. 10 minutes later, whoosh, Lin Feng's figure appeared in a huge hourglass space. This place was very special. In fact, every area had its own different shape. Some were cylindrical, some were rectangular, and some were even circular. There were all kinds of shapes. The only similarity was that all the areas had a one-way teleportation exit and several teleportation entrances. Although the hourglass space was special, it was not the most outstanding. However, it was in such a space that the only strange thing appeared. The mysterious space might not only have one teleportation entrance. Lin Feng pondered. His eyes were clear. According to his observation, every teleportation area here was the same. There were at least 2 or 3 teleportation entrances. There were at most 7 or 8 teleportation entrances. It was possible that there were even more than 10 teleportation entrances. The entire space was like a huge maze. And what he was looking for, it was very possible that it was the center of the maze. It is very easy for Duo to solve it. Lin Feng smiled slightly. He suddenly stopped moving forward. However, for me, it should not be difficult. Since this mysterious space can appear once, it will definitely appear a second time and a third time. However, according to the rotation and evolution of the formation, there is a unique time rule and opening pattern. Lin Feng's state was calm, his expression calm. With a solid foundation of experience in arrays, he might not be able to solve this array, but he clearly knew its principles and operation. The rest was much simpler. Wait. Chapter 1681. He just had to wait patiently. Lin Feng stopped in front of the teleportation entrance. The winged insects entered one after another. As expected, they all led to a fixed space. Every second, hundreds of winged insects entered one after another. For the winged insects that could carry hundreds of millions of winged insects, this was a piece of cake. Waiting, there would definitely be results. As long as this mysterious space existed, as long as the exploration continued, there would naturally be a second opening. The only question was, how long would it last? Lin Feng stood calmly with his hands behind his back, waiting calmly. Basically, with his reaction speed, as long as the winged insects entered and noticed something was wrong, he could immediately take action and enter the mysterious space in an instant. Although the method was stupid, it would definitely work. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 1 hour. Lin Feng didn't move at all. It wouldn't be a problem to maintain this state for 3 days and 3 nights, let alone such a short time. What piqued Lin Feng's curiosity the most was what sort of treasure was hidden in the mysterious space within the entire treasure vault. Danger? Lin Feng didn't care. Only when there was danger would there be opportunities. Time passed little by little. The winged insects entered in batches. Lin Feng's patience finally paid off. He waited until the moment to wait for rabbits. Pump! The moment the winged insects entered, Lin Feng reacted. His reaction speed was shockingly fast. Even before the winged insects entered the mysterious space, Lin Feng had already seized the only opportunity. In an instant, flowing light appeared everywhere. He entered a huge spiral tunnel. His entire body seemed to be sucked into a tornado. Everything in front of him spun extremely fast. Punk! His heart trembled slightly. He suddenly felt very different. In an instant attack, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. His reaction to the external attack was extremely fast because he had already made defensive preparations. The disappearance of the winged insects was enough to prove that there was danger in this mysterious space. The sudden attack was like a hidden, poisonous snake spitting out its tongue, aiming for his throat. Fast, ruthless, poisonous, rich astral source energy gathered into a sharp blade. Its strength couldn't be described with just the word terrifying. Very strong. Lin Feng almost instantly determined the strength of the sneak attacker. Compared to the Blood Tiger Emperor, Ku Tianyuan, who he had defeated before, there was not much difference. Although he was weaker than the Dragon Bull Clan's Demon Emperor, Bu Yunlei, this kind of strength was enough to be ranked in the top 5 of the Demon Clan. Who was it that possessed such powerful strength? Demon Emperor? Hua. In the darkness, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The power of heaven and earth erupted, activating his strongest defense. The identity of the sneak attacker was seen through in an instant. Lin Feng sucked in a breath of air in his heart and was incomparably surprised. It was actually her. Naturally, he recognized her because she was quite famous among the demon race. However, they rarely appeared on the battlefield. Demon Emperor, Fox Princess. Bang! The collision of star source energy and heaven and earth energy caused a loud metallic sound to ring out. If it was any other ordinary Saint King realm expert, they would have already died under Fox G's vicious attack, but her target was Lin Feng, the strongest person in the Douling world. It was not an undeserved reputation. In fact, even if Lin Feng did not dodge Fox G's attack, he would only be slightly injured. Lin Feng's current defense was too strong. Bang! The two instantly bounced off each other. Lin Feng's expression was still calm, but his eyes clearly captured Fox G's gaze. It was filled with shock and fear. Obviously, she did not expect this sneak attack to end in failure. She did not even manage to injure him. Whoosh! As fast as lightning, Fox G's reaction speed was extremely agile after her attack failed. The moment she retreated, she turned around and left without stopping. The cunning and cautious nature of the Demon Fox clan was fully displayed. Why were the other 3-4 demonic sovereigns either dead or injured? Why was Fox G safe and sound? What she relied on was her cunning and wisdom. The demonic Fox clan was the smartest clan of the Demon clan. Every expert of the demonic Fox clan was a first-rate intellectual. However, whether or not they could use their innate intelligence in the right way was another matter. However, to be able to become one of the 4 great royal clans, the Demon Fox clan was naturally outstanding. Fox G was even more outstanding. Her strength was comparable to Kuei Tianyuan's, but she had been hiding her strength. It did not matter even if she was regarded as the weakest of the 4 demon emperors. Why? It was very simple. because this way, she did not need to take the risk to fight. She knew how dangerous it was to fight. The two defeats in the Great Lich Demon War were the biggest proof. Even if the demon race had the absolute advantage, there was still no guarantee that they would win the Great Lich Demon War. There was no guarantee that the demon emperors could return safely. Therefore, Fox G chose to hide her strength. In the crucial battle, she was sent to guard Demon Emperor Island. The facts prove that her choice was correct. The demon race did return in defeat. Even the strongest of the 4 demon emperors, Niu Yunlei, died an unnatural death. However, intelligent demons could indeed preserve their lives, but intelligent and ambitious demons might not necessarily be able to do so. No one knew that the reason why the demon race's most terrifying killing weapon, the demon god of annihilation that was cultivated by condensing the essence blood of 3,000 demon gods of the demon race, could be awakened was all thanks to Fox G. Fox G wanted to use the demon god of annihilation to control the demon race and even unify the Douling world. But she never expected the demon god of annihilation's strength was far beyond her control. In fact, she was almost devoured. The cycle of justice was not good. Fox G finally reaped what she had sown. In a panic, she hid in the most hidden space in the treasure trove to avoid the demon god of annihilation. Who would have thought that the monk could run away, but the temple could not? The world-destroying demonic god did not find her, but Lin Feng accidentally ran into her. Run? Since he saw her, could she still run? A cold light shot out from Lin Feng's eyes. His extreme speed exploded in an instant, causing the entire space to shake violently. The moment he made his move, he displayed the mysteries of the space element, causing the space to shake violently. Although he couldn't destroy the space passage or seal it, but it was enough to make Fox G hesitate and not dare to enter. The disorder of the space tunnel was extremely terrifying. Once one entered the unstable space tunnel, it was very likely that one would be drawn into the space turbulence. Not to mention an expert like Fox G, even Lin Feng himself might not be able to survive if he entered the space turbulence. As expected, a sharp cry resounded. Fox G suddenly went crazy. Forced into a desperate situation, Fox G went crazy. Terrifying sonic booms came one after another, aimed at Lin Feng. This demonic sound attack was comparable to Wan Macho's spiritual Zen bell. It was enough to shatter the soul of a weak warrior. Although a Saint King expert would not be injured, it was inevitable that they would be affected. Unfortunately, Fox G's opponent this time was too strong. Completely ignored. Lin Feng's eyes were like cold swords. Panga's pupil was a first-class pupil technique. Although his doppelganger did not have Pangu's pupil, the Panga technique that he cultivated was not weak in this aspect. Lin Feng had not seen any experts of the demon race throughout the entire Demon Emperor Island. It was rare to meet one of the 4 emperors, Fox G. How could he miss such a big prey? Kill. In a one-on-one fight, Lin Feng was confident that he could kill Fox G. Being killed by a demon emperor was an absolute loss of strength for the demon race. It was also a blow to the demon race's morale. Lin Feng's speed was astonishing. The moment the space shook, he had firmly locked on a Fox G. The appearance of the illusory spear caused the airflow to surge wildly. Lin Feng suddenly shouted, "Bang!" Fox G's pretty face turned pale. The sonic booms suddenly stopped. Strong chi of heaven and earth rushed over. Determined to kill, 2 cold lights appeared in Fox G's hands. They were 2 exquisite daggers. The tips of the daggers flashed with a cold green and red light. Obviously, they were dipped in poison. With Fox G's status and strength, the poison on the daggers was something that even a Saint King expert could not resist. Chi. Fox G's movement technique was very strange. Few people knew that the Demon Fox clan was not only the smartest clan of the demon race, but also the most agile and powerful clan. As one of the 4 imperial clans, the Demon Fox clan should not be underestimated. However, she met Lin Feng. Although Fox G's attainments in the Tao of Space were strong, there was always someone stronger. Bam! The intense vibration of a space restricted Fox G's movement technique. After comprehending the door of darkness, Lin Feng's Tao of space had improved by leaps and bounds. His strength was no longer the same as before. Now, Lin Feng's attainments in the Tao of space were only slightly inferior to Witch Emperor Dezhong's. He was stronger than Fox G. So what if Fox G used all her dirty tricks? The difference in strength was too great. Chi, chi, chi. Lin Feng's spear was like an illusion. No matter how ghostly Fox G's movement technique was or how tricky her attacks were, the illusory spear's attacks were impenetrable. Coupled with the shrinking space, Fox G's movements were restricted. Fox G was best at close-range combat. However, she was completely suppressed by Lin Feng this time. Her defeat was expected. With a shrill cry, Fox G landed heavily on the ground with injuries. Her charming face was pale from blood loss. Lin Feng stood in the air with the illusory spear in his hand. He looked down at Fox G and sensed her weak aura. After a few exchanges, her strength had plummeted. In a face-to-face battle, Fox G was still inferior to the other four emperors. After all, this was not her strength. Except swish. Fox G's eyes instantly changed, mixed with a hint of enchantment. It was as charming as a phoenix and as hot as the clouds and rain. It made one's heart beat nonstop. What a stunning face. It was coquettish and charming. Her cherry lips were so alluring that one would be mesmerized and want to kiss and suffocate. What made one's soul ripple the most was her seemingly drunk, yet not drunk temperament. A thin veil lightly draped over her shoulders and slowly slid down, reflecting that infinitely beautiful body, as if it was the most beautiful masterpiece of the heavens. Her existence was like a work of art. No one was willing to touch her. Her gentle beauty was like a delicate and pitiful little bird. It made one want to take care of her carefully. Her charm was like a natural beauty. It made one want to gallop on the battlefield and conquer her. However, put away your charm. Lin Feng said indifferently. His eyes were clear and transparent. He was not confused at all. All of a sudden, all the illusions shattered like glass and disappeared. Only Fox G, who was half lying on the ground with a pale face, was left in horror. She had been defeated. Do you want to know more about the exciting events of fire smelting the starry sky? Open WeChat now. Click the plus sign on the top right. Choose to add a public account to your friends. Search for Kitty An's Wang and follow the public account. You will never miss a new update. Chapter 1682. The four great demon royal families each had their own strengths. Even the 5 great demon royal families had their own unique skills. So how could the Fox Demon Clan not have one? In fact, the Fox Demon Clan's unique skill was charm. Even if she didn't use her innate skill, Fox Princess's charm ability was already at the pinnacle. It was enough to make any man fall head over heels for her. Even Saint King level experts were no exception. Once she used her innate skill, charm, her charm index would instantly soar by 100-fold. Few people in the entire Douling world could resist her. Fox Princess was even confident that she could charm Niu Yunlei, who had the strongest willpower among the demon clan. It could be said that this was Fox Princess's true trump card. Ever since she was born, Fox Princess had never failed to use her unique skill. But this time, she failed miserably. How could someone as strong-willed as Lin Feng, who was even stronger than ordinary starry sky experts, be charmed by Fox Princess? Moreover, from the very beginning, Lin Feng had been on guard against Fox Concubine's unique skills. Knowing yourself and knowing your enemy would ensure victory in 100 battles. Not only the Fox Demon race, but Lin Feng also knew all the unique skills of the monster race's 4 sovereign races and 5 royal races. At this point in the War of the Witch Demon Clan, both the Witch Demon Clan and the Demon Clan had no secrets to speak of. Lin Feng pointed his illusory spear at Fox Princess, his expression calm. Dealing with Fox Princess was easier than dealing with the other 3 demon emperors. Her strength might not be weaker than the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan, but she was completely countered by him, just like how the great sage was countered by witch Emperor Jiang. He could not even use half of his strength. Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed, showing no mercy. Fox Princess was not a weak woman at all. The slightest carelessness would cause her to fall into the pink trap and die without a trace. He had to kill her. But you can't kill me, Fox Ji shouted in human language. In that thousandth of a second, Lin Feng's illusory spear stopped. The tip of the spear was stained with Fox Ji's blood. The illusory spear was formed from the power of the world. With Lin Feng's strength, he could freely control it. A light flashed in his eyes. Staring at Fox Princess, Lin Feng didn't say anything, but it was clear that he was asking Fox Princess, "Reason? As long as you don't kill me, I can tell you a secret." Fox Princess pursed her cherry lips, and her cheeks flushed red. There was a kind of limitless desire. Lin Feng frowned, feeling disgusted. Fox Concubine had used her innate talent, charm, as she spoke. This woman's heart was as venomous as a scorpion. She definitely could not be underestimated. "Speak," Lin Feng shouted with a cold expression. Fox Concubine bit her lips. Her lustful eyes contained the power to seduce one's soul. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Lin Feng's bone-chilling eyes looked at her, as if he was warning her. Fox Concubine's body trembled. She withdrew her charm and said, "I'm not lying. This secret is not only related to the survival of the human race, but also related to the entire Douling world." Boom! Lin Feng was slightly shocked. Although his expression didn't change, a light flashed in his eyes. What did Fox Concubine know? "But you have to promise not to kill me." Fox Concubine was extremely smart. She knew when to stop. She looked at Lin Feng and said, "Similarly, you can't use any excuse to hurt me or send other powerful beings to deal with me. It's an equivalent exchange. I'll use this secret in exchange for my life. I promise you, you won't lose out." Fox Concubine pursed her lips and stared at Lin Feng. This time, she was serious and didn't use her charm. She was very good at bargaining. Fox Concubine was a smart person. Looking at this sexy woman in front of him, Lin Feng knew how terrifying and threatening she was. However, he also knew that she was far less terrifying than him in the demon graveyard. Lin Feng looked at Fox Concubine. He paused for a moment and then said, "The secret you mentioned, is it related to the world-destroying demon god?" Boom! This time, it was Fox Concubine's turn to be shocked. She looked at Lin Feng in horror. Her breasts rose and fell rapidly as if she was looking at a monster. She couldn't figure out how Lin Feng knew about the world-destroying demon god. That was a top secret of the demon race that only the demon royal family knew. Looking at Lin Feng's calm expression, Fox Concubine's heart was in chaos. She felt as if she was standing naked in front of Lin Feng without any secrets. He knew everything? Say it. Lin Feng knew what Fox Concubine was thinking. He said indifferently, "If what you say is useful to me, I promise to let you live. I won't kill or hurt you." It was worth it. The secret of the world-destroying demon god in exchange for Fox Concubine's life. It was worth it. Lin Feng had already weighed the pros and cons. Fox Concubine was extremely intelligent, but she was afraid of death. Her weaknesses were as prominent as her strengths. Most importantly, her strength was not at the level where she could threaten him. However, the existence of the world-destroying demon god was like a thorn in his side. He was always on tenterhooks. If he could get more information about the demon god, or even find a way to break it, it would be very useful to him, to the humans, and even to the entire Douling world. "You swear?" Fox Concubine was still a little afraid. She looked at Lin Feng hesitantly. She couldn't make up her mind. She was usually very observant. However, today, she couldn't see through this human, just like how she couldn't see through Lam Tok Tea. "Oomph." Lin Feng snorted. His murderous aura instantly surged. A strong aura was instilled. The illusory spear moved forward again. In an instant, Fox Concubine's chest was bleeding profusely. Her face turned pale. Lin Feng looked down at Fox Concubine and said coldly, "Don't try to bargain. I Lin Feng, a man of my word. As long as you tell me everything you know about the world-destroying demon god, I will let you live. Otherwise, I will kill you without mercy. Lin Feng's murderous aura was awe-inspiring. Some people were amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Some people were amenable to coercion. Fox Concubine was obviously the latter. The simplest and most direct way to deal with someone who was afraid of death was to threaten them with death. There was no need to let them have the initiative. With Fox Concubine's cunning nature, she could start a dive factory. She would definitely hide something and not tell the truth. On the contrary, this made her afraid to take action and not dare to hide anything. Sure enough, in the next moment, Fox Concubine's eyes dimmed. She lowered her head as if she was hesitating about something. However, she did not even dare to look at Lin Feng. After pondering for a while, she suddenly said in a hoarse voice, "The world-destroying demon god is cultivated by the blood essence of the ancestors of the demon clan. Every generation of the demon clan's royal descendants will contribute their power to nurture it and let it grow up. This secret will be passed down from generation to generation until, in our generation, in order to win the war of liches and demons, the Blood Tiger Emperor Tianyuan completely ignored my advice and forcibly sacrificed to awaken the world-destroying demon god." While speaking, Fox Concubine's body trembled as if she had been greatly wronged. He even sacrificed his life to become the demon god's food. Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan. Lin Feng frowned slightly as he carefully pondered over Fox Concubine's words. Although he had doubts in his heart, he did not interrupt Fox Concubine. He only asked, "What is sacrifice? Why to sacrifice one's life? What is the so-called food?" He was very curious. Lin Feng was very curious about everything about the world-destroying demon god, even if it was the smallest detail. An ant's nest could destroy a 1,000-mile dike. Many times, a seemingly careless piece of information could turn the whole situation around. Lin Feng stared at Fox Princess. His eyes were cold and full of murderous intent. It was as if he was telling Fox Princess that if she dared to lie, he would kill her immediately. Fox Concubine did not dare to hide too much, because Lin Feng had called out the name of the world-destroying demon god, which made her feel very uneasy. She did not know how much Lin Feng knew, so she did not dare to lie. She only pushed her fault to the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan. Anyway, Kuei Tianyuan was now a puppet and could not defend himself. This lie could not be exposed except for her and Kuei Tianyuan. As for the rest, there was no need to lie. It would not do her any good. Fox Concubine continued. To awaken the world-destroying demon god, not only does it require the blood essence of a pure demon royal descendant, it also requires 3,000 demon experts. Among them, no less than 1/10 of the Sage King level experts are needed for the sacrifice. Fox Concubine said the entire sacrifice is divided into 3 parts. The first step is to awaken the spirit of the demon god. The second step is to reconstruct the body of the demon god. The third step is the descent of the demon god. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. It could be seen that Fox Concubine was telling the truth. Moreover, the 3,000 demon experts, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He instantly recalled the deaths of the demon race experts who had surrounded him previously. Could there be a connection between them? Lin Feng pondered for a while and frowned. Fox Concubine stole a glance at Lin Feng. Seeing that Lin Feng's expression did not change, she continued. Since the demon race was defeated, the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan, saw that there was no hope for a comeback, but he was unwilling to admit defeat. After learning from the painful experience, he cut off all means of retreat. He gathered 3,000 demon experts and held a sacrifice to awaken the spirit of the demon god so that he could absorb the energy to reconstruct the body of the demon god. In half a year, the body of the demon god will be completed. When the demon god descends, the 3,000 demon experts will be his most loyal warriors. With unparalleled strength, he will take over the entire Douling world. Fox Concubine's voice boomed like thunder, causing Lin Feng's heart to palpitate. Half a year? In half a year, the world-destroying demon god would descend? That was too fast. Wait a minute. Lin Feng pursed his lips, and a burning light flashed in his eyes. If what Fox Concubine said was true, the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tanyuan, saw that there was no hope for a comeback, so he held a sacrifice. Wouldn't that be when the demon race retreated? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's eyes widened. If that was the case, according to the time of the demon race's retreat, wouldn't it be? 5 months had passed. Bang! Lin Feng jumped wildly. This time, he could no longer hide the change in his expression. He was greatly shocked. That was the world-destroying demon god. If he descended, who in the Douling world would be able to defeat him? Lin Feng was extremely shocked. Fox Concubine also clenched her teeth, and her gaze was extremely complicated. That day, her plan could be said to be flawless. She thought that she could use her talent to charm the spirit of the demon god and make it the strongest puppet in her hands. However, she paid a huge price of blood essence and part of her lifespan. When she wanted to puppet the spirit of the demon god and open Pandora's box, she found that it was just an empty box. Fox Concubine was stunned. She did not expect this at all. Chapter 1683. Actually, everything had already been planned. Fox Concubine did not expect that an uninvited guest had already opened the devil box out of curiosity before her. It was not Lin Feng, but the most powerful demon at that time, the heaven-defying existence that led the entire demon race, the Great Sage. Although the Great Sage was not a royal descendant of the demon race, he was still a descendant of the demon star. His bloodline was pure, and he had gathered the essence of heaven and earth. Although he could not completely awaken the world-destroying demon god, he had opened the devil box. At that time, the demon god spirit had made a prompt decision to plant a seed in his body. When Fox Concubine truly opened the devil box and awakened the world-destroying demon god, the seed planted in the Great Sage had already grown and even bore fruit. The complete demon god spirit that was originally in the devil box had already been abandoned by the demon god. That was because his spirit had already been awakened. As long as there was soil and nutrients, the seed would naturally grow. The world-annihilating demon god, formed from the essence blood of 3,000 demon gods, had a very strong life force. Although it was nourished and grew in the Great Sage's body, and its energy increased slowly, as long as it had enough time, the world-annihilating demon god spirit would be able to grow bit by bit until it recovered to its peak state. This was one of the powerful abilities he possessed. The world-destroying demon god had a clear distinction between taking and letting go. Although it would take a long time to grow in the Great Sage's body, it was still better than being suppressed by restrictions and not knowing when it would be opened. Moreover, he was quite satisfied with this body. In the Douling world, it would be difficult to find another body that could satisfy him so much. Not only was it a rare spiritual body of heaven and earth that contained the essence of heaven and earth, but it was also a great sage who was the leader of the demon race. This identity was very important to the world-destroying demon god. After all, he was only temporarily attached and did not wish to live in this spiritual body of heaven and earth forever. No matter how good this body was, it would not be 100% compatible with his soul. Moreover, his original body was better than this spiritual body of heaven and earth. Reality proved that the world-destroying demon god had made the right choice. Otherwise, if Fox Concubine had awakened him, it would have been a disaster for him. Although the possibility was only about 30%, the world-destroying demon god would not have chosen to take the risk even if it was only 10%. When Lin Feng first entered the cemetery, the apocalyptic fiend celestial was already in a half-awakened state. Back then, he wanted to kill Lin Feng. The world-exterminating demon god unleashed his strongest strength because he did not want the secret to be leaked. Unfortunately, he failed at the last step. By then, even if Lin Feng did not leave, the apocalyptic fiend celestial would no longer have the power to attack. After all, he was still restricted by the restriction, and his spirit was still weak. However, the world-exterminating demonic god's luck was indeed not bad. Originally, he still needed a long time to absorb enough nutrients. Who would have thought that he would dig his own grave after obtaining the great sage? His luck was unstoppable. The world-destroying demonic god took the opportunity to occupy the great sage's body and gain full control over it. In an instant, the growth of the spirit increased at an alarming rate. Later, Foxy found that some of the corpses of the powerhouses in the cemetery were missing. She became suspicious and thought that the other demon emperors were also trying to awaken the world-destroying demon god. Therefore, she decided to strike first. Who would have thought? Everything turned out to be nothing. Although she did not continue with the second part of the ceremony and gathered 3,000 powerhouses of the demon clan, it was a wise move. However, the spirit of the world-exterminating demonic god, who had already gained full control of the great sage's body, possessed the strongest strength of the demon clan. Who in the demon clan could stop him from doing what he wanted to do? As a result, the current situation was created. Even the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kuei Tianyuan, countless demon kings and demon stars had become his food. Other than Kuei Tianyuan, who was forced to do so, the other demon kings and demon kings, as well as other powerhouses of the demon clan, did not know about the existence of the world-exterminating demonic god. They treated it as part of the ceremony and wanted to escape, but it was already too late. It could be said that all the powerhouses at the top of the demon clan's pyramid, except for Foxy, were not spared. Foxy was also very careful and cunning. The moment she realized that something was wrong, she immediately hid in the secret space of the treasury. This was a secret passed down from one demon emperor to another, be it the great sage or the spirit of the world-exterminating demonic god. None of them knew about the existence of this secret space until Lin Feng discovered it. From the beginning to the end, Foxy recounted the whole matter. Other than the part about herself that was slightly edited, the rest was all out without any concealment because there was no point in concealing anything. She was very clear about the current situation. Not to mention the human race. Even the demon race might not be spared by then, and there was no place for her. Knowing the secret of the world-exterminating demonic god, only death would await her once she showed herself. Lin Feng's expression was extremely ugly. His heart was in turmoil, and he was extremely shocked. Foxy's words could be said to have solved all his doubts. However, after solving all his doubts, he did not see the light at all. Instead, it was dark and gloomy. The situation in front of him could not be described as bad. It was simply terrifying. It was like the eve of a storm. What was more terrifying was that even though he knew that there would be a storm in the future, there was nothing he could do. Half a year, 5 months had passed. There was only less than a month left. After confirming with Foxy, as expected, the demon clan's sacrificial ceremony started not long after they retreated. According to the time, he had rested for more than a month. After entering the Endless Sea domain, he had spent another 3 months. A total of 5 months had passed. Looking at the process of the sacrificial ceremony of the 3,000 demon god Deathsworn had entered the final stage. No wonder only 2,000 of the demon god Deathsworn came to deal with me. Lin Feng pursed his lips tightly and thought to himself. The remaining 1,000 demon god Deathsworn had not finished their contribution. There were still many nutrients that had not been absorbed by the world-exterminating demonic god. Even so, the world-exterminating demonic god had already replenished more than half. Previously, he had indeed killed some of the remaining 1,000 demon god Deathsworn. However, it did not make much of a difference to the overall situation. Was there a difference between a world-exterminating demonic god at full strength and a world-exterminating demonic god at 70% of its strength? According to his estimation, even a world-exterminating demonic god at 10% of its strength could probably wipe out the entire Doling world. He was too strong. He was so strong that it was too late for the demons themselves to regret. Back then, the 3,000 demon gods perished together with Pangu and threw themselves into the ocean. Other than multiplying their bloodlines, they also preserved the last bit of essence blood they had left and became the world-exterminating demonic god. Unfortunately, there was always a flaw in everything. The world-exterminating demonic god was indeed very strong. However, after fusing with the meager essence blood of the 3,000 demon gods, there was a mutation. He was like a devil that was born out of thin air. He was like a newborn living creature. Although he had intelligence, he was born from the heavens and earth. He did not have the demon bloodline at all, nor did he have the consciousness of being a demon. To put it simply, the 3,000 demon gods exhausted all their efforts to nurture a successor, who knew that this successor that they had painstakingly nurtured would turn out to be a traitor. The world-exterminating demonic god was a perfect and independent individual. At that moment, the 3,000 demon gods panicked. They exhausted the last of their strength to set up a restriction to trap the world-exterminating demonic god. Otherwise, the world-exterminating demonic god would have mercilessly annihilated the entire demon race. After that, they set up a plan for the descendants of the demon race and passed it down from generation to generation. They would forcefully trap the spirit of the world-exterminating demonic god and use the demon race's blood to nourish his body. Then, they would use the demon race's body to give birth to new intelligence and control his body. He would then become a true demon. When that happened, the world-exterminating demonic god would be able to integrate the restriction into his body and turn it into a treasure, becoming a true demon emperor. Unfortunately, plans could never keep up with changes. There are many flaws in her words. Lin Feng carefully analyzed what Fox Concubine said. He was very clear in his heart. Although she said that it was done by the Blood Tiger Emperor, Kui Tianyuan, he felt that it was most likely done by herself. Even if she did not do it personally, she would not be able to escape responsibility. However, it was useless to talk about it now. Things had happened, even if they did not happen. The world-exterminating demonic god had appeared, even if he did not. What he needed to do now was to find a way to eliminate the world-exterminating demonic god, not trace back to the source and hold the initiator responsible. It was no longer important whether Fox Concubine was the one who did it or not. After pondering for a long time, Lin Feng's expression was extremely grave. At this moment, the threat of the demon race, the rise of the human race, and the hidden extreme powers were no longer important. All of these could not be compared to the destructive threat of the world-exterminating demonic god. Once he descended, so what if the human race unified the Douling world? The world-exterminating demonic god could destroy the entire Douling world. Swoosh! Lin Feng's eyes suddenly flashed as he glanced at Fox Concubine. The latter's delicate body trembled, and her breasts heaved up and down. "I'll ask and you'll answer," Lin Feng said solemnly. "If your eyes flicker or your words are vague, don't blame me for being merciless." The illusory spear in Lin Feng's hand clanged as the power of heaven and earth condensed. The strong killing intent made Fox Concubine's delicate face turn pale. She nodded frantically. She could see Lin Feng's determination and his murderous intent. At this moment, it was useless to say more. In fact, Lin Feng would not give Fox Concubine any time to hesitate. How long until the world-exterminating demonic god is born? Lin Feng's eyes were burning. 1 month, no, it's 28 days. Fox Concubine did not dare to hesitate and quickly answered. Lin Feng made a mental note and asked again, if the world-exterminating demonic god does not absorb enough energy, will there be any changes to the arrival time? This, Fox Concubine paused slightly as she suddenly felt Lin Feng's dagger-like sharp eyes. She quickly said, "I'm not sure about this. There are 3 steps to the world-exterminating demonic god's descent. The first step is to gather its spirit. The second step is to mold its body, and the third step is to arrive. To be precise, the world-exterminating demonic god's power will be perfectly combined with the body. However, if the world exterminating demonic god does not absorb enough energy and its strength is not 100%, it may be able to break the world exterminating demonic god's descent. Or it may not be able to break the world exterminating demonic god's descent. Fox concubine stole a glance at Lin Feng and answered carefully. It was equivalent to not answering. However, Lin Feng did not vent his anger on Fox concubine because Fox concubine's answer was flawless. It might be the truth. This kind of hypothetical question did have different possibilities. Restriction. A clear light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes as he felt a chill in his heart. Obviously, the key was in this restriction. It was set up by the 3,000 demon gods with great effort, so it was imaginable how powerful it was. However, it was unknown whether the world exterminating demonic god could break the restriction. After all, the restriction set up by the 3,000 demon gods only confined the world exterminating demonic god's body. The demon god's spirit was separated. Phew! After pondering for a long time, Lin Feng let out a long sigh. This was already beyond the scope of his ability. Making a rash decision might lead to a fatal mistake. There was no need to force himself at this moment. Duo. Lin Feng called out softly. Help me. Chapter 1684. There was less than a month left. This matter concerned the survival of the Douling world and the survival of humanity. Lin Feng did not dare to casually deal with it. Moreover, he could not do it. The power of the world destroying demon god was far beyond his level. With Lin Feng's personality, he would not seek help from Toto unless he had no other choice. This was because this was the mindset he had since he was young. Since he embarked on the path of a martial artist, he had to move forward unyieldingly without fear. If he sought help from others whenever he encountered difficulties, he would develop a dependency mentality, which would greatly affect his cultivation. However, Lin Feng was willing to do it for the sake of humanity. If he was alone, how difficult would it be to avoid this calamity? With the Netherworld ship's capabilities, it was not difficult to hide. He could hide inside and cultivate. Once he broke through to the Starry Sky realm, he would be able to leave the Douling world. However, as the human emperor, Lin Feng had to shoulder this responsibility. There were some things he had to do. However, fate seemed to play a joke on Lin Feng. At this crucial moment, Toto did not react at all. No matter how Lin Feng shouted, Toto seemed to have gone into hibernation. Half an incense stick of time passed, but Toto did not respond. Lin Feng had a bad feeling in his heart. Something must have happened to Toto. The biggest possibility was that Toto had helped him reforge the strange wall fog formation to deal with the extreme army. It seemed easy for Toto to say it, but the situation afterward was a little strange. He had used up a lot of energy. Based on the current situation, even if Toto was not injured, he had used up a lot of his soul energy. It was very likely that he had fallen into hibernation. This is troublesome. Lin Feng was gloomy. He had experienced the recovery of his soul from hibernation before. It was not something that could be recovered in a day or two. It would take at least half a month, and at most a few months, a few years, or even a few decades. But now, the danger was imminent. There was no time to delay. Pa! Lin Feng clenched his fists and focused. He could only rely on himself. Rather than passively waiting for Toto to wake up, he might as well take a gamble and see if he could survive this crisis. He was not confident, but he would do his best and leave it to fate. I'll use my clone. Lin Feng made a decisive decision. Firstly, the clone is much stronger. Secondly, even if the clone is killed, at least the main body will still be alive. Although it will be greatly damaged, it won't be fatal. Seeing is believing. Let's go investigate the surroundings first, and then enter the cemetery again. Lin Feng's expression was resolute. Even though he knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, he still chose to go there. If he wanted to get rid of the threat of the world-destroying demon god, he had to enter the Ruse cemetery. No matter how dangerous it was, he had to go. He interrogated Fox Princess for 6 hours. Lin Feng almost wanted to open Foxy's head and ask her all the details about the world-destroying demon god. Perhaps Fox Princess didn't know it herself, but every word she said had a critical effect. In order to stop the calamity, one had to start from the roots. 3,000 fiend celestials. Lin Feng was alarmed. Without a doubt, the ones that pursued me were the avatars of the 3,000 fiend celestials. According to Fox Princess, the 3,000 demon experts sacrificed their souls to obtain a portion of the world-destroying demon god's energy. They used the death aura to reforge their strength and become the world-destroying demon god's most loyal subordinates. When the time comes, if the world-destroying demon god were to appear, the 3,000 fiend celestials would become his claws and fangs. They would charge at the front lines like an army. The threat is indeed great. Lin Feng nodded and secretly rejoiced. He had accidentally killed more than half of the 3,000 fiend celestials when they were at their weakest. Of the 2,000 from before, in addition to the nearly 300 semi-finished products he killed not long ago, the world-destroying demon god only had 700 minions left. The threat was greatly reduced. Let's search the surroundings and see if there are any semi-finished products. Lin Feng circled the cemetery and began a large-scale search. Killing these semi-finished products was more cost-effective than killing the finished products. Firstly, the world-destroying demon god could absorb less energy. Secondly, he could directly kill these undead experts before they formed their strength. It was simple and fast. After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, Lin Feng immediately made killing the semi-finished undead experts his top priority. It was still too early to talk about the restriction and the demon god spirit. If he killed more semi-finished undead experts, it was very likely that the world-destroying demon god's absorption would not be perfect and he would not be able to fuse with the spirit. Even if he could still break the restriction, the time of his descent would most likely be delayed. And with this delay, he would have more time to think of a way to resolve this situation. The only problem was, where should he go to find these semi-finished undead experts? Lin Feng swept around aimlessly, not letting go of any clues. However, after searching for a few hours, he did not find anything. The gray aura around the cemetery was dense, but there was no trace of the undead experts. It was as if they had all suddenly disappeared. However, Lin Feng had been attacked before, so he was very clear that there should be quite a number of semi-finished undead experts. At the very least, it would not be less than what he had killed. No one would be so foolish as to directly send out an entire army to kill him, not to mention that the number of undead experts was already very clear. Now, he was still short of 700, although he was very unwilling to admit it. Reality forced Lin Feng to give up the only hope in his heart. The remaining 700 gray undead experts were most likely in the cemetery. Floating in the air, Lin Feng looked down. He looked at the area that was enveloped by a dense aura of death, but he could not see through it at all. His own power of heaven and earth was also unable to penetrate it. Compared to the first time he came here, the cemetery had changed dramatically. Very obviously, all of this was because of the sacrificial ceremony and the awakening of the world-destroying demon god. Blood Tiger Emperor Tianyuan, or Fox Concubine. Lin Feng's eyes were clear, and his heart was beating fast. Intuition told him that Fox Concubine was hiding something from him. Based on what he knew about Kuei Tianyuan, he was very cautious and was definitely not the kind of monster that would be blinded by hatred. After all, although the monster race was defeated, they only lost some vitality. Would it be difficult for a monster race that possessed a large-scale spirit-gathering formation to recover? Obviously, it was not difficult. During the two great witch-demon wars, the monster race had always been recuperating and recovering their vitality. Why didn't they summon the world-destroying demon god? This was harming others without benefiting oneself. Based on Kuei Tianyuan's personality, he would definitely not do this. However, based on Fox Concubine's personality, she should not do something that did not benefit her at all. Thinking of this, Lin Feng frowned. This was an unsolvable situation, no matter how he thought about it. He could not come up with a reasonable answer. Forget it. Lin Feng shook his head and threw these distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. It's not important. What's important is that the world-destroying demon god has already descended. According to Fox Concubine's words and the time, the first step of the sacrificial ceremony has already been completed. The second step is also more or less completed. There is not much time left. I have to take a risk. Swoosh! The power of the heavens and earth burst forth. Lin Feng was very determined. He knew very well that entering the cemetery this time was a situation where there was only a slim chance of survival. Back then, the world-destroying demon god who had not started the sacrificial ceremony could already severely injure him. Today, the world-destroying demon god who had recovered a lot of his strength should be able to kill him easily. The only variable was the restriction. Back then, he did not chase after me to kill me. Therefore, the restriction's function obviously exists. Restricting his strength is one of the reasons. The most important reason is to restrict his movements. In other words, the range of his attack. Lin Feng nodded secretly and analyzed carefully. Perhaps the world-destroying demon god who had recovered a part of his strength was indeed very strong. However, as long as the restriction existed, his attack might be limited. The range of his attack. This was a rather important index. It was like a treasured sword that could cut through iron like mud. However, if you placed this treasured sword in a house, no matter how sharp it would not be able to cut through the things outside the house. Similarly, the world-destroying demon god's strength was very likely to be limited by the range of his attack. Of course, his judgment was very likely to be wrong. However, there was already no way out. I believe that there is always a way out. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, he shouted loudly. The illusory spear in his hand condensed the tyrannical power of the heavens and earth. Lin Feng instantly became one with his spear. Like a dazzling meteor, he shot toward the area shrouded by the aura of death. Chi! In an instant, Lin Feng's figure pierced through the aura of death and disappeared. A large hole was created in the aura of death outside the cemetery. However, it quickly reformed. It was as if nothing had happened. Bang, bang, bang. The dense aura of death possessed an extremely strong, corrosive ability. The moment Lin Feng entered the cemetery, he felt as if he was being attacked by countless Saint-level and Saint-King-level experts. The consumption of the power of the heavens and earth was rather fast. However, Lin Feng's speed was also extremely fast. Whoosh! After penetrating through the area shrouded by the aura of death, Lin Feng landed on the ground. Pa! As Lin Feng moved, the illusory spear suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the Doomsday Spear. The power of the heavens and earth that surrounded him previously also disappeared. This unknown area was completely isolated from the outside world. There was no spiritual energy or power of the heavens and earth. There was only the dense aura of death here. In other words, the power of the heavens and earth that he consumed could not be recovered. Fortunately, it's my clone that entered. Lin Feng nodded indifferently. If it was his original body that entered, his strength would be reduced by more than one level. Although the clone's strongest power had to be used sparingly, the clone's tyrannical physical strength and starry sky level spear techniques were also among the best Saint King level experts. The weakening of his strength was limited. As expected, the changes are great. Lin Feng looked around and exhaled lightly. The intensity of the aura of death alone was more than 10 times stronger than when he entered before. This was only the outer area. It was completely imaginable how intense the aura of death in the central area was. If he fought with those gray undead experts here, it would be much more difficult. The entire cemetery gave off a gloomy and terrifying feeling, making Lin Feng's heart skip a beat. It was as if he was suffocating. The danger level was extremely high. This feeling was as if he had come to hell alone. It was a situation where there was only a slim chance of survival. Since I'm here, I might as well take things as they come. Lin Feng slowly calmed his mind and revealed a faint smile. At least, He had successfully taken the first step and entered the cemetery without being attacked by the world-destroying demon god. It was obviously a good start. Then, let's continue. Chapter 1685. P.S. If you want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions, please search for Dread on WeChat and follow it. Give more support to Fire smelting the starry sky. His exploration speed wasn't fast. Although it was his second time entering the cemetery, Lin Feng was still very cautious. After all, he was in the tiger's den, and every step was dangerous. Just the illusions that were everywhere could kill him. Although Lin Feng wasn't afraid of the illusions with his strong willpower, how could there only be so little unknown danger? The only fortunate thing was that although the environment had changed, the location hadn't. This was still the cemetery that he had entered before. In other words, Lin Feng knew the layout of the cemetery, including the periphery, the center, and the location of the world-destroying demon god. This was undoubtedly good news. 6 hours later, as expected, the outermost area didn't change much. Lin Feng felt less pressure, but he also felt that the road ahead was full of danger. This was only the outer area of the cemetery. When he entered that day, although the outer area was lifeless, there was still some spiritual energy. But now it was completely sealed, forming a unique area. Further in was the inner part of the cemetery. The magnetic field there was sealed, and the aura of death was dense. Now, the outermost area was filled. In other words, the inner part of the cemetery was also more dangerous. But what was to come couldn't be avoided. Sizzle. Bang. It was as if he had passed through a layer of space, and his body was strongly squeezed. The resistance isn't strong. Lin Feng moved slightly, and the power of heaven and earth condensed. After passing through this layer of space, he had entered the cemetery area. He couldn't relax at all. The power of heaven and earth was quickly consumed. Lin Feng's eyes deepened, and he felt that the density of the aura of death had increased countless times in an instant. Taking a deep breath, Lin Feng felt that his feet had just touched the ground, and instantly, bang, bang. In the distance, countless auras seemed to have sensed his appearance, and they attacked at an extremely fast speed. The explosion of the aura of death was like thunder. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. He shook the doomsday spear in his hand, and the power of heaven and earth instantly gathered and exploded with a strong energy. Doomsday Darkness. The special ability of the Doomsday Spear was the ability to change the geography of the land and a domain-type ability. In this cemetery, a small area of darkness was formed, and it was clearly separated from the surrounding gray aura. The consumption of world energy was not great, and Lin Feng was already prepared. He did not lower his guard. Danger came as he wished, so he just had to cross it. Gray Undead Expert. Lin Feng instantly judged. Although the thick gray mist around him limited his vision, with his current strength, his heart's eye was much clearer than his eyes. Just by relying on the changes in the airflow, he could clearly sense the changes in the surroundings. Although these undead experts had come suddenly, but that was exactly what he wanted. He was only afraid that it wouldn't appear. Shua! Lin Feng dodged to the side. His body movement was exquisite, and he dodged perfectly. The Doomsday Spear in his hand pierced through one of the gray, undead experts. Lin Feng roared fiercely. The moment he pierced through the gray, undead expert, he exploded with an extremely strong physical strength and directly blasted the gray, undead expert into two. Pure, physical strength. Yet it was so strong. Without stopping, Lin Feng took a step back with the help of the reaction force. His right foot stepped on the ground in an unconventional manner. In an instant, the darkness of the Doomsday Spear erupted again. With a simple step back and a simple step forward, another gray undead expert was killed. Chi! Chi! Bang! Lin Feng's attack was like a butterfly dancing in a flower, extremely beautiful. In a small circle, the spear in his hand danced like a dagger, opening and closing, advancing and retreating, he used defense as an attack, causing countless gray undead experts to die again. Most importantly, from the beginning to the end, Lin Feng did not use even a trace of world energy. Strong. This was the current strength of Lin Feng's clone. With absolute physical strength and star sky level spear techniques, it could be said that below the saint level, no matter how many came, they would all die. Naturally, the gray undead experts would not be endless. No matter how strong the death aura was, it was difficult for the gray undead experts to recover after being cut in two. Even if they could, it would not be done in a short time. After an hour of continuous slaughter, Lin Feng finally stopped. Hundreds of undead warriors' corpses were scattered all over the place. They couldn't be more dead than this. However, Lin Feng's face did not show the slightest joy. Instead, he frowned slightly. No, these undead experts are different from the ones before. Very different. Lin Feng muttered to himself, thinking to himself. It was an indescribable feeling, but he could clearly distinguish that the hundreds of undead experts he killed were different from the 2,300 demon god avatars he killed before. Not only were their average strength weaker, but their reactions and other aspects were also much worse. It was like two different treasures and weapons. They could not be lumped together. Moreover, these hundreds of undead experts were all at the saint level. There was not a single saint king. If my guess is correct, these undead experts should be the ones who were here to absorb the death aura that day. According to the time, they should have awakened. Lin Feng nodded and quickly came to a conclusion. That day, the capacity of his shield of truth was limited, so he only took the corpses of the Saint King experts. He did not take the corpses of the other saint-level experts. Now that the death aura here was dozens of times stronger than before, it was only natural that these undead experts would awaken. Hundreds, only a small number of them. There will be more if we go deeper, Lin Feng thought to himself. However, he revealed a gratified smile. Fortunately, he took away the corpses of the Saint King experts that day. Otherwise, he would have to face many Saint King undead experts. With his strength, he was naturally not afraid. However, it was a little difficult to deal with Saint King experts with just his physical strength. The power of heaven and earth could not be replenished in the cemetery. Every bit he used was a little less. Birds of a feather flock together. The death aura here is so strong. I believe the remaining 700 demon god avatars must be here. Lin Feng was secretly shocked. Then, holding the doomsday spear, he set off on his journey again. Kill. When he entered the area of the cemetery, tombstones were erected everywhere. The gray undead experts were everywhere. Not only were there the monster race, but there were also the sorcerer race, the ancient race, and the neutral races. Lin Feng did not hesitate to kill them, even if they were experts of the ancient race alliance, because they were already dead. Their current resurrection was just an illusion. To these arrogant ancient race experts who were controlled by the death aura and turned to puppets, it was an insult. Bang! Lin Feng's strength exploded and directly turned the three undead experts in front of him into nothingness. Surrounded by corpses, the depths of the cemetery revealed a thick, gloomy feeling. Inexplicably, he felt uneasy. Lin Feng frowned slightly and looked around vigilantly. However, there was not much difference from before. It was still shrouded in the thick death aura, just like hell. What was wrong? Could it be that the remaining 700 demon god avatars were nearby? Lin Feng was pondering. Suddenly, bang, bang, a sudden change occurred. Dust exploded, and the sound of boulders shattering was deafening. Along with the flying rocks, demon experts jumped out from the boulders one after another. In an instant, they covered the mountains and plains, and their roars were continuous. The Dragon Bull clan, the five-clawed Golden Dragon clan, the double-faced lion, the Dragon Elephant Turtle, and countless Saint King level experts of the Monster Star level appeared almost instantly like bamboo shoots after the rain, causing Lin Feng's expression to change drastically. What was going on? Why did the monster race suddenly have so many Saint King level undead experts? Demon god avatars? No. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. He instantly understood the situation. If he did not guess wrongly, these Saint King-level undead experts that appeared in 2, you were probably the ancestors of the monster race who had been buried in the cemetery for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. Without becoming a Starry Sky expert, these Saint King-level demon experts should not have been able to preserve their bodies for so many years, but he had overlooked an important factor before. This was the cemetery. It was densely covered in a dense death aura all year round, preventing it from decaying and being destroyed. And now, the sudden death aura was so strong that it was even mixed with the will of the world-destroying demon god. How difficult was it to awaken the ancestors of the monster race who had been sleeping in the cemetery for so long? Lin Feng pursed his lips tightly. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt that it was troublesome. What should he do? With his strength, he could indeed deal with this large number of Saint King-level demon experts, but he had to use the power of heaven and earth. However, if he didn't deal with them, he could only lure them away. With his speed, he could indeed widen the distance between them, but the threat was still there. The graveyard was only so big. Once he was surrounded by a large number of gray, undead experts, it would be even more difficult to deal with them at that time. There were pros and cons. The key was how to choose. Bang! Bang! Lin Feng dodged and attacked at the same time, but he did not have time to think so much. The imminent attack forced him to counterattack. The strength of these Saint King-level experts was completely different from that of Saint. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. No matter how weak they were still true Saint King-level existences. Moreover, their bloodlines were pure and powerful. Those who could be buried here were all elites among the elites of the demon clan. Lin Feng had indeed poked a hornet's nest this time. Chi, Hua, Clang. Lin Feng's expression was solemn as he attacked while dodging. The power of heaven and earth condensed on the tip of his spear like venom. Although he could not control the consumption of the power of heaven and earth, he could only use the most extreme method to reduce the output. Facing a group of saint-level demon experts, he was under great pressure. Extreme movement technique changes. Extreme control of power. Extreme spear energy explosion. Lin Feng exerted his strength to the limit. Even so, the power of heaven and earth was still being consumed bit by bit, but the number of Saint King-level gray undead experts did not decrease. If this continues, I will be exhausted before I can find the remaining 700 demon god avatars. Lin Feng was shocked. He quickly retreated and dodged the sharp claws coming at him. Facing the pincer attack from the left and right, he cleverly avoided it. His world annihilation spear blocked and retreated quickly, his expression solemn. What should I do? Dodge? This thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind, but he was slightly stunned. He seemed to have forgotten something. I'm so stupid. Lin Feng smiled bitterly in surprise. My novel, Refining the Starry Sky by Fire, will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend. Search for the public account Dread and follow it. Hurry up. Chapter 1686. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the WeChat public account Dread and follow it now. Give more support to Fire smelting the starry sky. He was too confident in his own strength. Lin Feng had always been confident in his own strength. No matter how dangerous the situation was, he would face it bravely. He rarely relied on external forces such as treasures. It was the same when he entered the cemetery this time. The only thing he thought of was how to squeeze the strength of his clone or his main body. But he forgot the most fundamental thing. He had undead powerhouses himself. Come out. Lin Feng's eyes burned. In an instant, countless undead powerhouses born in the shield of truth appeared like a tsunami. They met the undead powerhouses of the demon clan in front of them. A Sage King was not at a disadvantage against a Sage King. The invasion of the rich death aura wiped out all the advantages and disadvantages of each other. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. Seeing the current situation, Lin Feng let out a long sigh of relief. The appearance of a large number of undead powerhouses on his side solved the urgent situation. His side even had a lot of advantages. The advantage in numbers made it so that the undead powerhouses on his side could fight several against one, and their strength was fully displayed. The damage to the Shield of Truth was a free combination of factors. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Otherwise, even if he could use the Shield of Truth now, it would be his main body using it. After all, it was his main body that was compatible with the Shield of Truth and not his clone. However, the damaged Shield of Truth's weapon spirit was in a half-asleep state. It had nothing to do with compatibility. It was only connected to his soul. The aura of his soul was exactly the same as that of his clone. If his main body could use it, his clone could use it too. Don't waste such a rich death aura. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The Shield of Truth instantly absorbed the death aura like a whale swallowing the sea. Now, the Shield of Truth had become the Shield of Death. Its effect was completely different from before, but in a sense, it was an evolution. After all, what he needed most now was not defense. Although the conversion of the death aura is slow, it is much faster than normal absorption and recovery. Moreover, with so much death energy, we can cultivate even more undead masters and strengthen the human camp. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. He instantly locked onto one of the Saint King-level undead experts who had already been severely injured. His body flashed, and the moment it was dead, he sucked it into the Shield of Truth. Shua! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Although the soul invasion encountered some resistance, it wasn't too strong. A Saint King-level undead expert that was almost dead was nothing more than a piece of cake for him. Soon, the Shield of Truth gained another powerful member. It's done. Lin Feng was secretly delighted. A single Saint King realm undead spirit might not be of much use, but there were many Saint King realm undead spirits around. The most important thing was that the Saint King undead he had just absorbed into the Shield of Truth was already in an awakened state. It was just that its death chi had been depleted, and it was on the verge of falling into a deep slumber. Its death was like a machine that had run out of energy and stopped working. Using the Shield of Truth as a medium to replenish his strength, it was much faster than the outside world. Weaken the enemy's strength by a bit, and increase our own strength by a bit. One down, one up, the gap is closing very quickly. Lin Feng nodded, his heart filled with joy. The Shield of Truth not only solved the urgent situation, it also gave him a complete advantage. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Time passed little by little. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He still stood on the side calmly, watching the tigers fight. In fact, there was no point in being anxious. The Shield of Truth absorbed the death chi to its limit, madly replenishing the undead experts one by one. Soon, Shua, another undead expert revived with full HP and rushed out of the Shield of Truth. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. With a thought, one of the undead experts in the battle in front of him retreated and entered the Shield of Truth to replenish its vitality. Lin Feng did not need to be too careful with his control. The absolute advantage in numbers made the undead experts on his side invincible. About 2/3 of the graveyard area had been conquered by him. The remaining 1/3 was just a matter of time. After all, after a full 12 hours of battle, the number of undead experts on his side did not decrease. Instead, it increased by a lot. Now, there were more than 200 undead experts. It was quite shocking. What did that mean? 200 Sage King-level experts working together, even if they were only low-level Sage King-level experts, was a terrifying force. Under the suppression of absolute numbers, wherever they went, they were unstoppable and unstoppable. Lin Feng was also happy to be idle. He crossed his arms and waited for the final result. The power of heaven and earth was saved as much as possible. Soon, after cleaning up this graveyard, Lin Feng headed to the next graveyard. It occupied the largest graveyard in the entire graveyard. It was one of the most dangerous areas in the graveyard. Lin Feng, who had explored the entire graveyard once, knew clearly that that was the deepest part of the graveyard. That day, he was blasted out of the deepest part of the graveyard and almost died. The world-destroying demon god was quite terrifying. However, what was to come would come, and what was to be faced could not be escaped. During the 12 hours of battle, Lin Feng only moved occasionally. The Doomsday Spear kept ringing and was already quite excited. It was born for battle and lived for battle. The spear's destiny was to fight. Only by fighting could it truly shine. This was a path to the deepest part of hell. However, Lin Feng had no regrets. Kill. Like a general commanding calmly, Lin Feng went deeper into the graveyard step by step. Once, he was blasted out by the world-destroying demon god. Now, he was making a comeback. With more than 200 Sage King-level undead experts paving the way, the second line of defense of the graveyard had been completely destroyed. These generations of demon clan ancestors who should have been reduced to ashes should not have existed at all. Their existence had already violated the principles of heaven and earth. Therefore, their final death came very quickly. There was no possibility of reversal. This should be the second line of defense of the graveyard. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He approached the world-destroying demon god step by step. Although he felt that the danger was getting heavier and heavier, he calmly ignored it. Since he had stepped on this path, whether it was a blessing or a disaster, he could not avoid it. At least, he was very satisfied with the current situation. These demon clan ancestors who had been buried in the graveyard for countless years were now ashes to ashes. At least his trip was not in vain. Moreover, the consumption of the power of heaven and earth was extremely weak. It was almost negligible. His combat strength was still at its peak. What would be in the deepest part of the graveyard with large numbers of tombstones? Lin Feng slowly went deeper. The rich aura of death was even more shocking and terrifying. It was several times stronger than where the tombstones were. The Sage King-level undead experts walking at the front were all as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Although they did not have consciousness, this was the most primitive reaction, just like breathing. Their strength had increased by at least 50%. Not bad, Lin Feng thought to himself. If the Sage King-level undead experts in the graveyard were here, the difficulty of killing them would be more than double. Geographical advantage was very important to a warrior. A fire spiritual master could unleash 200% or even 300% of his strength in a sea of fire, but he could only unleash less than 30% of his strength in the sea. This was the difference. The undead experts were the real monsters here. Bang! Lin Feng's heart trembled. Thinking of this, his expression changed instantly. Those undead experts with undeveloped consciousness can increase their strength so much here. If the remaining 700 demon god incarnations were here, how much would their strength increase? Lin Feng's right hand, which was holding the Doomsday Spear, moved slightly. At this moment, boom, boom, boom. An explosive force suddenly appeared in the depths of the graveyard, accompanied by the angry roars of beasts. Lin Feng's expression suddenly turned ugly. They were here. As expected, there were gray, undead experts in the outer area of the graveyard, and a large number of Demon Clan ancestors in the inner area. There was no reason why there were no Demon Clan experts in the center of the graveyard where the aura of death was the densest. Although the gray fog was pervasive and he could not see the true appearance of the undead experts in the distance, his intuition told him that this time, it was most likely the remaining 700 demon god incarnations that he was looking for. The moment they exchanged blows, he knew who was stronger and who was weaker. They were on a completely different level from the previous two batches of undead experts. It was not only because of the geographical advantage, but also because these undead experts had different consciousness. Although they had just awakened their consciousness, their combat methods, techniques, and coordination had changed a lot, and their overall strength was much stronger. It's them. Lin Feng quickly determined. The doomsday spear in his hand stabbed out like a swimming dragon, directly killing the demon god incarnation that was charging at the front. He had exchanged blows with them more than once or twice, and had killed them for a full 3 months. It could be said that he was quite familiar with them. Not bad. As soon as they exchanged blows, Lin Feng calmed down. Although these demon god incarnations had become much stronger by relying on the rich aura of death and the geographical advantage, they were only on par with the 2,000 demon gods that he had killed 3 months ago. They had yet to reach their most perfect state. Or should he say, there were still remnants of life energy in their bodies, and their consciousness had yet to be completely extinguished. There was still a trace of consciousness in their dazed eyes, but due to the strength of the demon god incarnation and the demon god incarnation, they were no different from puppets and could not resist. Just as Fox Princess said, the second step of the demon god incarnation had yet to be completed. Although the absorption of the demon god incarnation's energy was coming to an end, there was still one step. 28 days was a very long time. Even so, the remaining 700 demon god incarnations could not be underestimated. It should be known that in the battle in the sea, 200 demon god incarnations were enough to make him exhaust all the power of the heavens and earth to avoid them. Although he could not see the exact number of demon god incarnations, these 700 demon god incarnations were definitely among them. The only question was, would they be together? There was no way to tell. He could only deal with them as they came. Lin Feng directly started the battle. There was no need to store the power of the heavens and earth that he had been saving. Every time he killed a demon god incarnation, the power of the demon god incarnation would weaken a little. With the cooperation of more than 200 undead experts, he was like a fish in water, instantly gaining the upper hand. 5, 10, 20. The number of demon god incarnations that died was constantly accumulating in the battle, but at the same time, the number of demon god incarnations that appeared increased even faster. 100, 200, 300. It was as if he had poked a hornet's nest. In an instant, it was overwhelming. Sure enough, they're all together. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. The ominous feeling in his heart had already come true. The 700 demon god incarnations all appeared. My novel, Refining the Starry Sky by Fire, will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of a lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry! Chapter 1687. P.S. If I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions, please search for the WeChat account Dread and follow it. Give more support to Fire Smelting Starry Sky. It was definitely an earth-shattering battle. On one side, there were more than 200 Sage King-level powerhouses led by Lin Feng. On the other side, there were 700 demon god incarnations. An intense battle was taking place in the depths of the demon clan's Forbidden Land cemetery. The thick aura of death clashed intensely, and a large-scale battle between Sage King-level powerhouses was extremely rare. In the Douling world, Sage King-level powerhouses were the foundation of the clan's combat power. How could they be like soldiers charging in a battle like this? Intense and varied. Lin Feng weaved through the crowd of Saint King-level powerhouses with extreme agility. The Doomsday Spear in his hand danced, forming a small black vacuum zone. Any undead powerhouse that fell into this zone would die. It was not difficult to kill these demon god incarnations here, but the consumption of the power of heaven and earth was like flowing water. The consumption was extremely fast. It was only a little slower than when he first fought the demon god incarnations. But at that time, just 200 demon god incarnations were enough to exhaust his power. Now, there were 700 of them. No, Lin Feng quickly determined, his expression solemn. If this continued, when his power of heaven and earth was exhausted, there would still be more than half of the 700 demon god incarnations left. When they first met, although they were decisive and killed many of the demon god incarnations that were alone, there were still more than 600 of them left. And his power of heaven and earth had already been depleted by 1/5. Once they lost the threat of him, the 200 undead powerhouses under his control would definitely not be a match for the demon god incarnations. Although they were all Sage King-level powerhouses, there are also many Sage King-level powerhouses in the demon god incarnations. Until now, a large portion of those who still retained part of their consciousness were Sage King-level powerhouses. The most terrifying thing was that with the help of the geographical advantage, ordinary peak Sage King-level powerhouses were comparable to Sage King-level powerhouses. This undoubtedly caused a lot of trouble. There's a chance. Lin Feng quickly sorted out his thoughts. Even in this messy and dangerous battlefield, he still maintained enough rational judgment. Until now, I still haven't sensed the world destroying demon god's power. Clearly, this place is beyond his attack range. Regarding that, I don't need to worry. In other words, I only have to face these 700 demon god avatars. Very good. Without the threat of the world exterminating demon god, Lin Feng was assured. At the very least, the situation was much safer. As for how to deal with these 700 demon god avatars, he more or less had a plan. Capture the ringleader first. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In an instant, he shot out like a sharp arrow. Even though there was a unique magnetic field here, and there was no spiritual qi, the Tao of space existed everywhere. Regardless of whether it was the qi of death or the pure power of heaven and earth, it was the same. Only with a strong enough spatial ability could one have complete control over the battlefield. Swish! Lin Feng moved as fast as the wind, and although his perception range was greatly limited by the death qi, he was still able to distinguish between Saint Realm and Saint King Realm Masters. The undead masters on their side could deal with a saint-level demon god incarnation, but a Saint King-level demon god incarnation was much more difficult to deal with. Over there, very quickly, Lin Feng locked onto one of the terrifying goblin-killing gods that looked like a bat. Its strength stood out among the demon god avatars, and its ear-piercing buzzing sound made people's hearts tremble. Wherever it passed, countless undead masters were killed, and their throats were torn apart. Its killing ability was quite shocking. Swish! The Doomsday Spear appeared in Lin Feng's hand in an instant, and the heavenly curtain trapped it like a spider web. Roar! With a furious roar, the bat demon god avatar's eyes were bloodshot, and it shot over like a madman. Its wings were filled with strong winds, and like the wings of an eagle, 2 rays of cold light burst out, wanting to tear Lin Feng to pieces. But in an instant, Pucci, the bat demon god avatar's eyes widened in shock, and the gray aura was extremely turbid, revealing a trace of sorrow. Boom! The powerful power of heaven and earth exploded, and the bat demon god avatar's body turned into a bloody mist. It died instantly. Swish! Lin Feng's figure appeared, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. As expected, in their hearts, the remnant consciousness is still resisting, unwilling to become a part of the world, destroying demon god. Even if they are goblins, they have their own wishes. Lin Feng thought to himself. He sighed softly. They were actually pitiful. A Saint King level expert was being used, and they must be very unwilling, but there was no need for sympathy, and even more so no need for mercy, because this was war. Either you die, or I live. Lin Feng's plan quickly took effect. After killing dozens of Saint King level experts, although the power of heaven and earth was greatly consumed and almost half of it was used up, the results were still satisfactory. Soon, Lin Feng succeeded and retreated. He did not continue to fight and directly retreated to the rear of the undead masters. In a short period of time, the number of undead experts had dropped from nearly 230 to 150, and it was still decreasing. But compared to the previous disadvantage, they were only at a disadvantage now. After all, The advantage in numbers was still held by the demon god avatars, and without the Saint King level demon god avatars, the pressure and casualties were much lower. Save the remaining half of the power of heaven and earth. Lin Feng thought softly. Leave a way out for everything, especially in the current situation. More power meant more hope. Although the undead masters on his side were at a disadvantage, they were different from the demon god avatars. If they died, there would be one less undead master. But the undead masters had a treasure like the Shield of Truth, and they could produce more undead masters every once in a while. Moreover, as long as the undead masters were not cut in half and died from destruction, their energy would be replenished faster. Swish! Swish! With a thought, Lin Feng immediately began to arrange for the undead masters who were charging at the front line and had consumed a lot of death chi to enter the Shield of Truth in batches to replenish. These undead masters who consumed a lot of death chi were his biggest trump card. They consumed a lot of death chi because they killed more enemies and suffered more attacks. Similarly, undead masters were also divided into strong and weak. There are still 27 days. I'm not in a hurry. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The key now was the situation and not the time. Since he had come in, he had to take a look and do something big. The 700 demon god avatars were only the first step. Lin Feng's decisive arrangement ushered in a chance of victory. He turned the unfavorable situation around, from a big disadvantage to a small disadvantage, and then to a tie, slowly gaining the upper hand. The battle in the depths of the cemetery could be said to be earth-shattering. The battle lasted for a full 20 hours, and the consumption of death chi was quite intense. The 700 demon god avatars were reduced bit by bit, from 500 to 300, and then from 300 to 100. Lin Feng's undead masters were also decreasing, from 230 to 150. Then, the rate of decrease slowed down. When there were 500 demon god avatars left, there were 140 undead masters. When there were 300 demon god avatars left, there were 90 undead masters. But now, the 700 demon god avatars had killed more than 100. There were still 50 undead masters left. Each of them was fighting one against two. Disadvantage? No, it was just a seeming disadvantage. Because behind the undead masters, there was still Lin Feng, who was almost at his peak state, with more than half of the power of heaven and earth remaining. Even if the undead masters retreated, Lin Feng was confident that he could kill the remaining 100 demon god avatars. After all, after a long battle, no matter how strong the remaining 100 demon god avatars were, they had consumed more than 2/3 of their death chi. As for the remaining 50 undead masters, their death chi was still quite dense. They took turns to replenish their death chi, allowing them to be able to fight for a long time. As for fatigue, to the undead masters, there was no such thing. Victory is certain. Lin Feng was like a marshal overlooking the entire battlefield, his heart determined. He had broken into the cemetery consecutively, and now he had reached the deepest part. It could be said that his initial goal was almost complete. At this moment, his gaze locked onto a very familiar figure. It was a burly man in golden armor. A pair of blood-red eyes sparkled, and the Golden King character on his forehead was eye-catching. Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan, one of the 4 emperors of the demon race. He had fought with him more than once. How could he not be familiar with this old opponent of his? Moreover, according to Fox Princess, Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was the main culprit who awakened the demon god of destruction. To think that a heaven's pride of a generation would end up like this. Lin Feng thought to himself. It was indeed sad and lamentable. Now his entire body was occupied by the death chi. Either his consciousness would be completely devoured and become a puppet, or he would die directly. There was no other way. Let me send you on your way. Lin Feng's gaze was cold, and he took a light breath. In an instant, he shot out again. Although he had been staying at the rear, Lin Feng had been observing the situation. Whenever he found an opponent who could cause great damage to the undead masters or couldn't be dealt with, he would personally take action. There were a few before, and now the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was the same. With the strength of the undead masters, even 10 of them couldn't kill it. Although it was an undead master, it was still his property. Now that there were less than 50 undead masters left, it was better to save as much as possible. Moreover, for the current him, was it difficult to kill the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan? It wasn't difficult. Perhaps the Kuei Tianyuan with a complete consciousness was very strong, but this Kuei Tianyuan was just an ignorant puppet. So what if he had an undying body? A body without a soul wasn't a normal body at all. The Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan had less than 10% of his strength left. Let's end this, Lin Feng shouted. The World Destroyer spear instantly pierced Kuei Tianyuan's chest, and the chi of heaven and earth exploded. Even if Kuei Tianyuan's body was far stronger than other demon god incarnations, it would only consume a little more chi of heaven and earth. There was no way to reverse his death. Bang! Kuei Tianyuan, who was flying backwards, instantly widened his eyes. They were bloodshot, and the original gray haze disappeared without a trace. A bright light suddenly shot out from his eyes, and it let out a hoarse roar like a demon as he crashed to the ground. Instantly, Lin Feng's expression changed. The novel Refining the Starry Sky by Fire will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up! Chapter 1688. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for Dread on WeChat and follow it. Give more support to Fire Smelting the Starry Sky. Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed and appeared next to Kuei Tianyuan. The shield of truth flashed and absorbed Kuei Tianyuan. Lin Feng closed his eyes and carefully sensed the shield of truth. The strong death aura poured in and nourished Kuei Tianyuan. Is there any hope? Lin Feng was not sure. He was shocked. Previously, he had tried to put his demon god avatar into the shield of truth the moment it died, but he quickly gave up because the demon god avatar could not be controlled at all. Even if he could replenish his strength in the shield of truth, what was the use if he could not control it? He would only have one more enemy. However, even if the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was an enemy, he still wanted to save him, which you will die a horrible death. Kuei Tianyuan's angry voice before he died echoed in his mind. It was full of curses and resentment. Although he could not speak the language of the monster race, he had studied it before and could understand it. Obviously, the demonic woman that Kuei Tianyuan mentioned was most likely Fox concubine, Kuei Tianyuan. With his status, he probably knew many secrets. Most importantly, he was different from the other incarnations of the demon gods. At the moment before his death, he seemed to have recovered his consciousness. Even if it was just a momentary recovery of consciousness, it was the real him, and not a soul that had been brainwashed by the aura of death and was close to becoming demented. The advantages of saving him outweighed the disadvantages. 10 seconds. 100 seconds. 1,000 seconds. Finally, Kuei Tianyuan's body trembled slightly, and even Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He let out a long breath. Although it was only a very small change, based on his experience, Kuei Tianyuan had clearly been saved. The only question was, would he retain his original consciousness after being saved, or would he retain his previous appearance after being brainwashed? Or other possibilities? No idea. There was no way to guess at the moment. Let's wait until he fully recovers. Lin Feng was in no hurry. Strong winds blew around him as several fiend celestial avatars attacked him. Lin Feng's gaze deepened, but he was not in the mood to continue fighting. He immediately retreated. It was not worth his time to deal with them. After losing the Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan, who was his strongest fighting force, the remaining 100 demon god avatars were insignificant. Their defeat was only a matter of time. 4 hours later, there were only 30 or so undead experts left standing on the battlefield. This earth-shattering battle had come to an end. The army of undead powerhouses led by Lin Feng finally defeated the 700 demon deity avatars despite being the weaker party. It had to be said that it was a glorious battle. It was a classic case of a small victory over a large one. It's over. Lin Feng revealed a gratified smile. No matter what, he had achieved his initial goal of entering the cemetery. The death of the 700 demon god avatars and the 300 demon god avatars that he had killed previously had cut off the last 28 days of the world exterminating demon god's energy source. And what he could do was only this. What would happen next would depend on the will of the heavens. Would there still be a chance for the humans and the Doling world to survive? A faint light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes, and the shield of truth flashed. In an instant, the remaining undead experts were all sucked into the shield. Although there were only 30 of them left, those who could survive until the end were all elites among elites. These 30 undead experts were all very powerful, even more powerful than the demon god incarnation that had a part of his consciousness at the beginning. It was like a tempering process. The impurities were removed, and only the essence was left. However, Lin Feng did not care about these. He closed his eyes and locked onto the only figure in the shield of truth. Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan. Had he woken up? Swish! Lin Feng abruptly opened his eyes, which shone brightly. At the same time, the shield of truth glowed. Kuei Tianyuan's huge body suddenly appeared in front of him. He trembled slightly, as if he had sensed the change in the environment. He opened his eyes in confusion. When his gaze fell on Lin Feng, Kuei Tianyuan's expression changed immediately. Lin Feng, on the other hand, smiled. Good news. Although he did not speak, Kuei Tianyuan could no longer see the gray aura in his eyes. His reaction was enough to tell Yi Shiwen everything. This Kuei Tianyuan in front of him was the demon race's prodigy of that generation, the Blood Tiger Emperor. He had returned. Blood Tiger Emperor, we meet again. Lin Feng was the first to speak. He used the common language of the humans and the ancients. He had interacted with Kuei Tianyuan more than once and knew his capabilities. He was good at both civil and martial arts. He also knew the languages of the humans and the ancients. Oomph. Kuei Tianyuan snorted coldly. His expression was very complicated. Thinking back to everything that had happened before, with his intelligence, he had basically guessed most of it. Who would have thought that the enemy in front of him was the one who had saved him? It's reasonable that you should thank me, right? Lin Feng smiled indifferently and looked at Kuei Tianyuan. Humph, you saved me out of selfishness. What do you want to know? Kuei Tianyuan glanced at him and said coldly. Lin Feng smiled and did not deny it. No matter what the reason is, I saved you in the end. Moreover, I helped you escape from the world, exterminating demon god's cage. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Kuei Tianyuan's eyes flashed. He snorted and said, You know quite a lot. Definitely not as much as you do, Lin Feng replied indifferently. Kuei Tianyuan laughed self-deprecatingly, as if he was recalling everything that had happened before. If I knew more, what I've been plotted against by that demon fox, and ended up like this. Is it Fox Concubine? Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Kuei Tianyuan looked over and nodded solemnly. His anger made the word king on his forehead shine coldly. This demon woman is very ambitious. Not only did she trick us into coming here, she even dared to release the demon god and use us as food for sacrifice. Damn it! Damn it! As he released his surging aura, Kuei Tianyuan's body trembled violently. He could not control his anger. Indeed, anyone who had been played like this and almost lost their life would be furious. How could they not control their emotions? I've seen her before. Lin Feng looked at Kuei Tianyuan. But she said that you were the one who released the world exterminating demon god. She suffered greatly. What? Kuei Tianyuan's old face flushed red. Smoke was almost coming out of the top of his head. He was furious. Damn that demon fox. How dare she push all the blame on me for her sins? How can I tolerate this? How can I tolerate this? If I don't kill her, I'll be a demon king in vain. As he spoke, he could not suppress his anger and was about to leave. Lin Feng smiled. It was rare to see Kuei Tianyuan, who was always calm, so he reached out to stop him. Do you know where she is? Kuei Tianyuan was slightly stunned. He looked at Lin Feng coldly. Tell me. Condition? Lin Feng looked at Kuei Tianyuan. His eyes flashed. In the favor of me saving your life, I want you to return it to me. Tell me, how can I kill the world-exterminating demon god? The novel Refining the Starry Sky by Fire will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% chance of a lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now. Click the plus sign on the top right to add friend. Search for the public account, Dread, and follow. Hurry up. Chapter 1689. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the WeChat public account, Dread, and follow it. Give more support to Fire, Smelting the Starry Sky. Kuei Tianyuan was stunned. However, he was stunned by Lin Feng's sudden words for a while. Then, he suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Kill the world-destroying demon god? Human, are you kidding me? He laughed wantonly. Kuei Tianyuan's laughter was full of disdain, as if he was mocking Lin Feng's naivety. However, it was as if he was acting in a one-man show. No one responded to him. Kuei Tianyuan, who was laughing maniacally, looked at Lin Feng. When he saw that Lin Feng's expression was serious and meticulous, he stopped laughing and his expression eased a little. Let me give you a word of advice. Go as far as you can. The power of the world-destroying demon god is not something you can imagine. Far from it. Kuei Tianyuan's eyes widened, and a strong fear flashed in them. He shook his head. Even if all the experts in the Douling world gather their strength, they may not be his match. As long as he appears, the entire Douling world will be razed to the ground and become a ruin. He represents destruction, the destruction of everything. No expert can stop him. No, as if muttering to himself, or as if immersed in his own world, Kuei Tianyuan's voice trembled slightly. It was rare to see someone as strong as him be so afraid. How terrifying was the world-destroying demon god. I have my own plans. Lin Feng calmly interrupted Kuei Tianyuan's voice. Although he felt a little disappointed, he did not waver at all. Since he learned about the existence of the world-destroying demon god, he knew that this path was not easy to take, and it was even more difficult to kill him. However, he could not escape this responsibility and had to face it. Kuei Tianyuan wanted to escape, but that was his business. However, even if he had to do his best, even if he had to pay with his life, he had to give it a try, even if the chance was only 1% or 1 in 1,000. If you wish to leave, I will not stop you. However, before you leave, tell me everything you know about the world devastator demon gods. After that, everything between us will be written off. Lin Feng said solemnly, his eyes bright. Including the time when you became a sacrifice. Do you have any memories? Perhaps Kuei Tianyuan didn't know as much as Fox Concubine when it came to the world devastator demon gods. But there were some things that Fox Concubine couldn't compare to Kuei Tianyuan, and that was Kuei Tianyuan's nightmare of 5 months. He was once a part of the sacrifice. He was one of those closest to the world destroying demon god. He was also his biggest hope now. Lin Feng looked at Kuei Tianyuan, waiting for his reply. With his understanding of Kuei Tianyuan would definitely tell him if he knew, even if they were in different camps. After becoming a part of the sacrifice, Kuei Tianyuan came into close contact with the world-destroying demon god. What he discovered might be of great help to Kuei Tianyuan. He might even be able to find the world-destroying demon god's weakness. This was the reason why Kuei Tianyuan saved him. Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was very useful. However, I don't know. Kuei Tianyuan shook his head without hesitation. He closed his eyes and frowned. Really, I don't have any memories at all. It was as if my memories were sealed. I only remember the white light that was devoured before the sacrifice. After that, everything is now. Kuei Tianyuan opened his eyes and let out a long breath. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "Whether you believe it or not, I have never seen the true face of the demon god." Kuei Tianyuan's expression, words, and eyes were flawless. Lin Feng pursed his lips and felt disappointed. However, there was nothing he could do. Although he had some hope for Kuei Tianyuan, he could tell that Kuei Tianyuan wasn't lying to him. Besides, there was no benefit for him to lie to Kuei Tianyuan. He could have lied to Kuei Tianyuan and send him to his death instead of being so clueless. Wait, Lin Feng's eyes turned cold. His memories seemed to be sealed? That's right. It was impossible for his memories to disappear. Kuei Tianyuan's soul wasn't completely devoured. He should still have memories of what he saw. It was just that he couldn't recall them. This was normal. Many people who had suffered disasters couldn't remember what happened in the past. Many people also had selective memory loss. Just because he couldn't remember didn't mean it didn't exist. If you want to know other information about the demon god, Kuei Tianyuan said slowly and seriously, "Blood Tiger Emperor, please forgive me. I have an unsolicited request." Lin Feng looked at Kuei Tianyuan. His eyes were cold, resolute, and persistent. He was like a beast staring at its prey. This made Kuei Tianyuan's expression change. He felt uneasy. "I want to search the soul," Lin Feng said in a deep voice. Just like what he did on Demon Emperor Island, he could search the memories directly. However, the soul of the person searching the memories had to be far weaker than him. Only by forcefully searching the soul could he succeed. If it was Kuei Tianyuan, he didn't have any confidence. The only way was for him to cooperate and give up his defense. However, would Kuei Tianyuan be willing? That was not only giving his life to the other party, but also his soul. As long as he had a trace of selfishness, he could directly destroy the other party's soul. Not to mention, searching the soul had a certain risk. The slightest carelessness could cause the soul to be damaged and the memories to be destroyed. After all, the soul was the most important and mysterious part of the body. Would Kuei Tianyuan be willing? In fact, the moment Lin Feng said those words, Kuei Tianyuan's face turned ashen. However, looking at Lin Feng's persistent and ruthless eyes, he felt some fear in his heart. He could see Lin Feng's determination and Lin Feng's determination. Lin Feng was very familiar with him. How could he not be familiar with Lin Feng? This human was simply a madman. In order to achieve his goal, he would do anything. Although Kuei Tianyuan wasn't afraid of Lin Feng forcefully searching the soul, he still couldn't feel at ease. After thinking for a long time, Kuei Tianyuan finally let out a long breath. "Come." Closing his eyes, Kuei Tianyuan completely gave up his defense. Clearly, he had accepted his fate. Part of it was because he was afraid of Lin Feng, and part of it was because he wanted to return Lin Feng a favor. After all, he owed Lin Feng a lot. Moreover, although he was afraid of Lin Feng, he still trusted Lin Feng's character. He believed that this human would never do anything despicable. "Thank you." Lin Feng nodded, but this was a sincere gratitude. To make an enemy of different sides do this, he was truly grateful. If Kuei Tianyuan insisted on not following his orders, there was nothing he could do. Forcefully searching the soul was a last resort. Unless he had no other choice, he wouldn't take this path. It was harming others without benefiting himself. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. After this is done, our grudges will be written off. In the future, as long as you don't do anything to humans, I won't do anything to you. Moreover, I will tell you where Fox Princess is." Lin Feng said slowly. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes. "Ready?" Lin Feng suddenly shouted, his eyes shining. A ray of light shot directly into Kuei Tianyuan's eyes. Pung. Soul Connection 0 instantly entered. The novel Fire Refining the Starry Sky will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up. Chapter 1690. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Dread, and follow it. Give more support to Fire Smelting the Starry Sky. The soul search seemed to take a long time, but in fact, it only took a very short time. Whether it was for Lin Feng or Kuei Tianyuan, there was no harm. Although Kuei Tianyuan's memory capacity was quite large, and he was an old monster who had lived for countless years, Lin Feng's speed of searching for information was still quite fast. In less than 10 seconds, the soul search was successfully completed. Bang! After the soul left, Kuei Tianyuan woke up in an instant. In fact, his consciousness had been awake all along. However, he was unable to move, as if he was trapped by an invisible force. He looked at Lin Feng with a pair of tiger-like eyes. The word Wang on his forehead flickered, as if he was asking Lin Feng, did he get any useful information? Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he said indifferently, "You can go. Fox Concubine is in the 6th layer of the Demon Emperor Island. Be careful. She is not weak." Lin Feng's voice was very calm. Kuei Tianyuan's tiger-like eyes flickered as he nodded slightly. Since Lin Feng did not say anything, he would not ask anymore. After all, the result was not that important to him. What was important was that he returned Lin Feng a favor and obtained the location of Fox Concubine. Kuei Tianyuan's eyes flashed with intense killing intent. In an instant, boom, he dashed out and his figure disappeared. Release the tiger back to the mountain? Maybe it wasn't. To Lin Feng, Blood Tiger Emperor Kuei Tianyuan was not that big of a threat. Moreover, the demon race was very different from before. Although the war of the shamans and demons did not cause great damage to the demon race, the sacrificial ceremony to awaken the world-destroying demon god did cause great damage to the demon race. Not only has his vitality been damaged, it's possible to say that his roots have been severed. Lin Feng thought to himself. After searching Kuei Tianyuan's memories, he had a much more accurate understanding of both the demon race and the world-destroying devil deity. As he had expected, Kuei Tianyuan did have memories of the world-destroying devil deity, but they seemed to be shrouded in a layer of gray fog, preventing him from recalling them. However, there wasn't much of a hindrance to Soul's search. This time, he had made the right decision. Saving Kuei Tianyuan had cost him a small price, but he had reaped great rewards. Not only did the death of the 3,000 demon god clones weaken the power of the demon god of destruction, it also directly weakened the demonic beasts. Lin Feng sighed softly as he reflected on the rise and fall of the demonic beasts, one of the most powerful races in the Douling world. Where did the 3,000 demon god incarnations come from? It was not created out of thin air. Instead, it was created through the sacrifice of Saint King Realm and Saint Realm demonic beasts. Their deaths were a devastating blow to the demonic beasts. It did not matter if a few Saint Realm demonic beasts died, but Saint King Realm demonic beasts were the most powerful in the Douling world, and more than 90% of them died. How many Saint King Realm demonic beasts were there in total? The decline of the demonic beasts was irreversible. The human race can completely replicate the successful path of the demonic beasts. With the vast, boundless sea realm as the foundation and the large-scale spirit-gathering formation as the center, the human race can truly prosper. This is because the human race and the demonic beasts have something in common that other races do not have, and that is the ability to reproduce. The extremely strong reproductive ability can allow the human race to expand rapidly. As long as there are enough powerhouses guarding, within 100 years, no one will be able to shake the human race's position. In time, dominating the Douling world will not be a delusion. However, Lin Feng pursed his lips and took a deep breath. All of this had a major premise, and that was he had to eliminate the greatest threat, the world-destroying devil deity. Its existence was like a bomb that could explode at any time. Even if it did not explode now, it would still explode in time. It was only a matter of time. By then, so what if the human race dominated the entire Ling world? They would still not be able to escape the fate of extinction. There's a way. There should be a way. There should be. Lin Feng muttered to himself. He closed his eyes and instantly entered a deep meditative state. All the information obtained from the soul search was stored in his mind. Now, he had to slowly restore it bit by bit. In particular, every step that Kuei Tianyuan had taken in the past 5 months as a sacrifice was extremely important. It was very likely that it contained important information that he wanted to know. There was always a way out. There must be a way. Lin Feng firmly believed. He could only rely on himself for everything. With Toto in a deep slumber, the strength of the human race had been cut off. Lin Feng was well aware of his current responsibility. Apart from him, no one else could shake the almighty world-destroying devil deity. The scenes in his memory replayed like a movie. Lin Feng frowned deeply. Most of what Fox Princess said was not a lie, especially the most important part. The steps to awaken the world-destroying devil deity, the 3,000 demon gods, and so on. Most of the scenes in his memory were the same. The 3,000 demon deity avatars were kneeling on the ground like puppets. Day and night, their energy, vitality, and even souls were absorbed. However, it was clear that the world-destroying devil deity had a certain amount of absorption. The absorption time was not long, but the digestion time was long. There was one part of the scene that he did not know before. The Great Sage. It's different from the other demon deity avatars. It's like a leader, Lin Feng nodded. In the scene, the world-destroying devil deity's absorption seemed to be initiated by the Great Sage every time. It was like a huge mine. The world-destroying devil deity was the owner of the mine. The 3,000 demon deity avatars were the miners, and the Great Sage was the leader of the miners. That's not right. Lin Feng was suddenly startled. The Great Sage is not the 3,000 demon deity avatars. It really isn't. Lin Feng was instantly stunned. Actually, he had some doubts before. Now that the scene in his memory was extremely clear, even though Kuei Tianyuan could not see the exact number of the 3,000 demon deity avatars, he could count the fine energy flows. There were no more and no less. Every time, there were 3,000 of them. In other words, the Great Sage was not among the 3,000 demon deities. Then what was he? Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. However, the person involved could not see clearly. He was confused and had forgotten what had happened before. Outside Demon Emperor Island, the Great Sage came to ambush him. At that time, he was alone. When he was in danger, a large number of demon deity avatars rushed over to save him. Back then, he had overlooked this point. However, it seemed extremely abnormal now. The large number of demon deities that came to save the Great Sage were not real demon deity avatars. They were half-finished products. Just like the 700 demon deities that he had just killed, there were demon deity avatars whose energy had yet to be completely absorbed. It was the same before. In the beginning, the 2,000 demon deity avatars came in groups. Only the Great Sage was an exception. He was always alone. It was as though he was different from the other demon deity avatars. If it was only because he was strong, it might be possible. However, it happened again and again. I'm afraid it is not a coincidence. There's a certain pattern to it. Lin Feng nodded secretly. At that moment, many of the doubts in his heart had been solved. If he guessed correctly, the demon deity avatars in the Great Sage's body was not the 3,000 demon deities. Instead, it was the real demon deity avatars. During the Great Shaman demon deity avatars, he already had intelligence. Most importantly, in Kuei Tianyuan's memory, the first step did not happen. Instead, the second step was directly carried out. In addition, when I entered for the first time, the abnormal state of the World Annihilation Demon Deity was enough to prove that the World Annihilation Demon Deity had already awakened a long time ago. His spirit, his soul, is the real culprit that stole the Great Sage's body. Oh no, When he thought of this, Lin Feng was shocked. If that was the case, would something happen to the great sage before he saw him? After all, his opponent was none other than the world annihilation demon deity who had been in a deep slumber for a long time. His strength was almost monstrous, even if he was severely injured by him. But Lin Feng was stunned. That's not right. Lin Feng shook his head and thought to himself, strange. If the world annihilation demon deity avatars is really the world annihilation demon deity avatars, why is his strength so weak? Lin Feng was deep in thought. He was puzzled. Such a powerful existence would become extremely strong even if it took over the body of an ordinary expert, let alone the body of a great sage. However, his strength was only slightly stronger than that of a great sage. Moreover, he was only strong in terms of endurance and the uniqueness of his death aura. He was not strong in terms of comprehension of Tao or other aspects. What is going on? Lin Feng was a little confused and could not figure it out. His intuition told him that this question was very important. If he could figure out, it might bring him a lot of clues. Putting himself in the world annihilation demon deity avatar's shoes, if his soul was attached to a star sea level expert, he was absolutely confident that he could defeat an ordinary saint level expert, let alone look down on all star sea level existences. However, this was not the case for the world annihilation demon deity. When he was attached to the great sage's body, other than his consciousness, nothing else seemed to have changed. I almost overlooked something. When the great sage fought with me for the first time and the last time, his strength was different. No, his consciousness level was also different. Lin Feng pondered and thought carefully. Could it be that, like the demon deity avatars, the world annihilation demon deity's spirit also has the ability to evolve? Yes, that might be the case. If his spirit is strong enough, his consciousness level should be the same when he fought with me for the first time and the last time. In other words, his spirit is gradually becoming stronger, just like the spirit of the demon deity avatars. When he is weak and unable to use his strength, he can be killed. Just like a star sea expert, no matter how strong he is, if time goes back to his infancy, an ordinary person can kill him. So, when I defeated the great sage, his spirit was also not at his peak state? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Thinking of this, his chest heaved up and down rapidly, and his hope multiplied. If his guess was correct, then the possibility of killing the world annihilation demon deity was quite high. Thinking deeper, if the great sage could regain his body, wouldn't that mean that the world annihilation demon deity's spirit had been destroyed? The destruction of the spirit meant that the world annihilation demon deity was dead? Lin Feng's eyes flashed with surprise, and he was extremely tempted. The novel Refining the Starry Sky by Fire will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there's a 100% chance of a lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry! Chapter 1691. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the WeChat public account Dread and follow it. Give more support to Fire Smelting the Starry Sky. The apocalyptic demon god is dead? The smile on Lin Feng's face suddenly disappeared as he shook his head with a bitter smile. It was a good idea, but it was a little wishful thinking. The apocalyptic demon god was so strong. So how could it die so easily? Ignoring everything else, just the existence of the demon god avatar was like the undead experts he controlled. Once he died, these undead experts would become ownerless. Similarly, it was the same for the demon god avatars. But just a moment ago, the remaining 700 demon god avatars were still in perfect condition. There was even a small portion that was close to being completed. This was enough to prove that the apocalyptic demon god spirit had not disappeared. And for what I remember, the apocalyptic demon god's energy absorption did not stop. That means his spirit still exists. Lin Feng frowned as he recalled carefully. The scene of the apocalyptic demon god absorbing energy again and again appeared clearly in his mind. He felt that something was wrong, but he could not put his finger on it. Observe again. Lin Feng was very patient as he entered cogitation state again. Lin Feng had been absorbing energy for 5 months. Every second was a time for him to absorb energy. It was clear as day. Over and over again, Lin Feng patiently studied, analyzed, and pondered. Almost every time the energy was absorbed, the gray great sage was present. Yes, that's it. Lin Feng nodded secretly as he analyzed. Logically speaking, the apocalyptic demon god's energy absorption had nothing to do with the gray great sage. According to his deduction, that was indeed the case. But why was the gray great sage present every time? Was it a coincidence? Definitely not. During the 3 months when the 2,000 demon god avatars were pursuing him, the gray great sage had participated in the encirclement. It was just that he would disappear from time to time. Previously, he did not pay much attention to it. But looking back now, it was obvious that the gray great sage had hurriedly returned to help the apocalyptic demon god absorb energy. Swoosh! Lin Feng's eyes opened instantly as they shone brightly. That's right. Spirit. It's spirit. Every time before the world annihilation demon god absorbed the energy, the gray great sage would be normal. However, during the absorption process, the gray great sage would feel as though his eyes were detached. After the absorption, the gray great sage's eyes would regain their luster. In other words, the world annihilation demon god needed the gray great sage's help to absorb the energy. I get it. Lin Feng's realization. According to Fox Princess, there are 3 steps to awaken the world-destroying demon god. The first step is to awaken the world-destroying demon god spirit. Without a spirit, how can the apocalyptic demon god absorb energy? Apocalyptic demon god spirit is human soul. And according to my previous speculation, the spirit of the apocalyptic demon god is attached to the gray great sage. So when he absorbs energy, he will temporarily return to his original body. A demon god demons is demon his is lin his eyes his sky earth. Sky, why couldn't the apocalyptic demon god do the same when he could split his soul into 2? It's very dangerous to be attached to the great sage's body. After all, his spirit was very weak back then. He was just lucky that the great sage was devoured by him. Lin Feng analyzed carefully and murmured, "If it were me, I wouldn't put all my chips on the table. At least, I would leave a way out for myself, a trump card." Obviously, the apocalyptic demon god spirit exists in his body. However, compared to the spirit in the great sage's body, it should have just awakened not too long ago. Furthermore, because the spirit has split into 2, the spirit in the original body isn't growing as quickly. That's why the main spirit needs to be present every time it absorbs energy. Let's take it as an average. If the spirit is split into 2, it should be able to grow 100% in half a year. But now it's at least doubled. Moreover, because of the uniqueness of the spirit in the apocalyptic demon god's body is much weaker. The spirit in the great sage's body is only a teenager. The spirit in the apocalyptic demon god's body, even if it's not an infant, it's at most a child. Huh! Lin Feng clenched his fists and opened his eyes. Huff, puff! Lin Feng took a deep breath to calm his mind. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's heart leaped with joy. Although the surroundings were still covered by the gray mist, the feeling was completely different. It was as if the clouds and mist had been pushed aside. Not only was his entire being renewed, but he was also filled with a strong sense of hope. According to his analysis, the apocalyptic demon god might have absorbed a lot of energy, but the weakness of his spirit gave him an opportunity to take advantage of it. His strength might not be as powerful as he had imagined. Calm down. I must calm down. Although his hope had increased, Lin Feng still did not dare to be careless. This was a tough battle with no way out. He had to analyze it from all angles. Even if he found a flaw, he had to think twice before acting. He could not be impulsive. After all, this was just his wishful thinking. He did not have any concrete evidence. Many things were not up to him to decide. Change was always unpredictable. It was a full day and night. After going through Tinyuan's memories over and over again, Lin Feng finally came to a decision after 5 months of mourning and analyzing the world, annihilating demonic god thousands of times. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. He did not leave the cemetery to recover the power of heaven and earth. Firstly, Lin Feng did not dare to guarantee that he would be able to enter again. Secondly, the remaining half of the power of heaven and earth was more than enough. If he could succeed, he would succeed. If not, it would be the same even if he was at his peak state. Tom did not allow him to waste any more time. 3 days had passed out of the original 28 days. Now, there were only 25 days left. No matter how he analyzed, he could not come to a conclusion. Facts spoke louder than words. No matter how he analyzed, it was just a hypothesis. Only seeing was the most real and direct. He had once sent undead experts to enter and see the true face of the apocalyptic demon god, but they were blocked outside. The protective wall formed by the dense aura of death was not something that undead experts could break through. Moreover, so what if they broke through? Apart from seeing the apocalyptic demon god, what could these undead experts do? They might not be able to do what he could do. They would definitely not be able to do what he could not do. There were some things and some difficulties that he had to try to solve personally. After a full day and night of deep thought, Lin Feng was fully prepared. The doomsday spear in his hand rang loudly. He was filled with fighting spirit. He seemed to have faintly sensed danger. Danger? That was inevitable. However, there was only one path in front of him. Break! Lin Feng roared. The doomsday spear in his hand spun out like a dragon. A terrifying power of heaven and earth erupted and directly penetrated the area covered by the aura of death. The so-called barrier could not stop Lin Feng at all. It shattered with a loud bang. It was as if an avenger had arrived. Lin Feng was filled with fighting spirit. His eyes were filled with determination. No matter how difficult the situation was, he would not back down. Even though he was forced to flee by the apocalyptic demon god previously, he was going to make a comeback this time. Swoosh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The moment he entered, he saw everything that he wanted to see. Not far away, there were shackles that were flashing with a strange light. It was a giant demon. The giant that was 10,000 meters tall was like a mountain. It was roaring crazily, and it was earth-shattering. The scene was extremely shocking. It was as if a new chapter had been opened. Once it appeared, there was a thunderous roar. Smack! Smack! Under his feet, the restriction shackles flashed and bound the apocalyptic demon god like chains. It was unable to move. It was just like the first time he saw it. However, this time, the apocalyptic demon god was unwilling to be restrained. It frantically tried to break free. It was an intense fight. Lin Feng looked at the scene in front of him with a burning gaze. This time, he felt as if he was suffocating. He had thought about the possibility of entering countless times, but he did not expect it to be like this. Just as he had speculated, regardless of whether the apocalyptic demon god had 2 spirits, at least he was conscious now. He was breaking free from the shackles and destroying the restriction. This was enough to prove everything. The apocalyptic demon god was a living being. Even if he was injured, even if his spirit was split into 2, just from the strength that he had broken free from the restriction, it was still terrifying. As for the restriction, it has dimmed a lot. Lin Feng's gaze fell on the restriction, and his heart skipped a beat. Compared to the restriction that he saw last time, the light was less than 1/3 of the previous one. It was like a lamp that was blown away by the wind. Although it was not extinguished, it was much smaller. He could vaguely feel that the restriction's energy was being consumed, like a candle burning. There was no doubt that it was consumed by the apocalyptic demon god. Lin Feng's heart sank instantly. He thought that the apocalyptic demon god might not be able to break free from the restriction because he did not absorb enough energy. However, everything in front of him told him that it was wrong. Even if the apocalyptic demon god did not absorb enough energy, the restriction's energy consumption was real. He believed that it would not be long before the apocalyptic demon god would be able to break free from the restriction and regain his freedom. The sacrificial ceremony that Fox Princess mentioned was 6 months. When the apocalyptic demon god spirit and body were perfectly compatible, he would be able to break free from the restriction. As it turned out, the 6 months referred to the time of the memorial ceremony. Breaking free from the restriction was not part of it. In other words, as long as the 6-month sacrificial ceremony was completed, the apocalyptic demon god's power would be strong enough to break free from the restriction and reach the most perfect peak combat power. Suddenly, Lin Feng trembled, and his hair stood on end. Oh no! Instantly, Lin Feng reacted. In the distance, he saw a cold light suddenly appear. It was the apocalyptic demon god's eyes that suddenly lit up. He was shocked, and the terrifying pressure was like a nightmare. The attack that had seriously injured him before he could even react appeared again. 7-inch punch. Lin Feng did not have time to think. He clenched his teeth, and his meridians expanded. The rich power of heaven and earth formed an astonishing power and blasted out. He was at a disadvantage in the first collision with the apocalyptic demon god. Even the shield of truth was severely injured. Boom! The collision of power was like the roar of thunder. Lin Feng's chest felt like it had been struck by lightning. His eyes were completely wide open. The rich aura of death whistled like a gale, breaking through the power of heaven and earth. The punch that he blasted out was directly broken. His arm was so numb that he could not feel it. He spat out a mouthful of blood and immediately retreated. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground. Lin Feng was injured by the apocalyptic demon god once again. The novel Refining the Starry Sky by Fire will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there is a 100% chance of a lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click the plus sign on the top right to add friend, search for the public account Dread, and follow it. Hurry up! You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.